Hey, welcome to Real Talk Mormonism 6. This is live calls and conversations on StreamYard beginning at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can join the show and talk about anything LDS related, where you can interact with me. I am the host of the Mormon Movie Reviews and the Mormon News Roundup. We can discuss anything Mormonism, whether you're interested in church history, theology, or current events. This show is your platform. We welcome both critics and defenders of the faith to join the conversation. This is your time to shine on screen. This is a one-of-a-kind kind of show, the only place that you can come on screen to talk about Mormonism. Now, if you don't know the first thing about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, that's no problem. And even if you're a general authority or you're serving on the church's Strengthening Church Members Committee, you're welcome to come on. There are no dumb questions. Now, nothing is off limits. You can ask me anything. Stump the Chump, no holds barred. Outsmart the know-it-all, no scripts, no rules, of course, except for YouTube's terms of service. Simply click on the link that you see down here below, or it's also in the description there on StreamYard.com/WAPASZV8DD. And you can share your thoughts, ask any questions, insights, anything LDS related, engage in lively discussions, explore diverse perspectives on Mormonism with this one-of-a-kind live call-in show. Now, since we don't have anybody there in the, we still don't have anybody here. Oh, we've got Latter Daily Digest. Nice to see you. Need you to come on. But since we don't have anybody at the moment, I do have a couple of things that I wanted to share here while we're going to kill some time. One of my favorite creators out there is the Mormonish Podcast. I thought I'd queue up a few of their shorts, see what they've been up to. Oh, let's see. Can you hear that?
What you can do is you go to the map, you find where you live. If you're not comfortable putting your pin where you live, you can put it at a stake center or somewhere else. But each little smiley face here represents a person that has left in a geographic area. You might be really shocked to look up where you are. This is just kind of the Wasatch Front, one little area. And when you click on each smiley face, it comes up with a little, just a few words. I left for history. I left during COVID. But you start to see the scope of it. It's all anonymous, but you just start to see that you're not alone. There are so many people that have stepped away.
Yeah, I think Rebecca there is talking about it's been out there for a while. It's Leaving Mormonism. It's a map out there. It's an interactive map. See what others have left you. Check it out here. The thing about this particular site here is that it's quite dated. I don't think it's kept much up to date. You can see where people have left around you. If we go over here to the Washington, D.C. area and zoom in on my neck of the woods, if we click on this, they say God is fake in 2021. And, these are a little bit old, 2022, 2017. Well, you know what? 2024, it's all bullcrap. 2016, 2021. Turns out I love same-sex relationships, don't want children, and I think and question. Yeah, I hear you very, very deeply there. Just checking out. I didn't think gays, blacks, and women were subhuman. Ouch. This is being more updated by the minute here. I remember looking at this a little while ago, and I didn't realize how updated it was. My daughters deserve better than to be raised in internalizing misogyny. That is terrible. And the people. They cared more for gossip and judgments of other people than trying to be good people themselves. Then I learned all the church history and lies which kept me out. Wow. Now, as far as Renee, hey, why don't you follow that link on the bottom and you can ask your question live on the air. We'd appreciate that. He says, what do you think is the best question to start with to help TBMs actually start questioning or looking? I really don't think that there is much that you can do to the average true believing member. There has to be something that comes from inside of them. We don't really choose what we believe. The whole idea of doubt your doubts is an absolute tragedy. It's a joke. We don't make decisions on what we believe. We are presented with evidence, or we have data that we come across, and then our mind chooses for us what we do with that evidence. There is absolutely no way that I could choose to believe in leprechauns. There's no way I could choose to believe in the Loch Ness Monster. There's no way that I could choose to believe in the flying spaghetti monster or anything other mythological creatures that have come along, Romulus and Remus or Thor or anything like that, because I have no evidence for that. And likewise, there's no way that I could be convinced that I am actually, a demon-spawned spirit or a jinn, or that I am actually a demon in human form, because my mind has been given we use our senses to interact with this world. We make decisions based off of that. So I don't think that you can engage people and try to rip away their faith very easily. They have to want something inside of them. They have to find the holes in their own faith and the reason that they believe what they do. I mean, I guess the only thing that I could say is, to somebody is, do you have good reasons for your belief? Do you have evidence for your metaphysical claims? Because if not, then you need to use critical thinking, and you need to have a skeptical mindset in order to determine whether your beliefs conform with reality. And if you start with special pleading for the church or special pleading for your God, or you start with a bunch of presuppositions, they may not conform to reality. So Stump the Chump, absolutely, yeah. It's probably going to be pretty easy. I've got a couple of other TikToks and videos that I want to share. Let's see what else we got.
Joseph Smith translated the record from the gold plates and called it the Book of Mormon. Okay, this was the narrative officially in 2021. I'm sorry, this is a little harsh for some people to hear, but facts are not insults. Russell Nelson tells the truth for the first time that I'm aware of, that Joseph Smith actually put the seer stone, and we now know what that is, into a hat, and the plates weren't even in the room. Could you imagine me telling that to investigators? You know.
And I can't imagine missionaries telling it to investigators. The church has admitted it, but I don't believe they teach the investigators that they did it from a rock and a hat.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, we do have Russell Nelson hat. He was interviewed in a very famous interview here with the Stone in the Hat translation here by one of his, I think it was
gift and power of God.
Somebody from the PR department, as I recall. And this is where this is a very famous clip here where he puts his actual face into the hat.
We have a lot of suggestions about how it was done. We know that they had a table like this. We know they had the golden plates covered usually, and Joseph used these the Urim and Thummim seer stones in the hat, and it was easier for him to see the light when he'd take that position. To me, it's like having my mobile phone at my hand, and I can get messages on it that you can't see.
That's true.
And they had nothing like that. So it's just the gift and power of God.
Yeah, I'll just say one thing about that. I got to turn off the autoplay on my. I got to turn off the autoplay on my YouTube. It's not at all like a cell phone. When I have a message that comes into my cell phone, other people can look at it. We can subpoena, when criminals turn over their cell phones, the FBI can crack them open and determine what's on the inside. There's an objective way to determine if someone has received a message on their cell phone. It's objectively verifiable. I can receive my cell phone message and I can hold it up to you, and you can see the exact same message on my phone. That is absolutely nothing like a seer stone at all. They shared absolutely nothing in common with a cell phone. There's nothing objective about a seer stone. There's everything. There's no science that can explain it. So the idea that cell phones and magic rocks are similar is a total and complete fallacy. It does remind me of that Brad Wilcox who tried to pull the same thing there, talking about the plates and the stone. Let's check that out as well.
I'm Brad Wilcox, and I'm starting a new semester teaching Book of Mormon at BYU. And I thought I'd share with you some of the visual aids that I use with my students. This is a replica of the seer stone, or one of the seer stones that Joseph Smith had. This was the stone that he found in a well when digging a well when he was a young man. And then when he would look into the stone, he would be able to see things that other people could not see. And part of the translation of the Book of Mormon was done with the Urim and Thummim, but part of the translation was also done with a seer stone, or several seer stones.
Well, I just want to say one thing about the potential seer stone and Urim and Thummim. Maybe some of the lost manuscript was done with the so-called Urim and Thummim, which most people think is a set of oversized spectacles. But apparently all of the modern day Book of Mormon that we have, not including the lost manuscript, was all done with the rock and the hat.
Now, people often get confused because they hear that Joseph Smith put a seer stone inside of a hat and then would look into the hat to see the seer stone. And they think it sounds weird. But when I compare for my students the seer stone to a cell phone, and I say, hey, a smooth surface on which words appear that can be read, then it makes more sense to them. I also say, hey, when you're out on a sunny day and you're trying to look at your cell phone, you wish it were darker. We often go like this to try to see the words better. Well, no wonder Joseph Smith put his cell phone or his seer stone in the hat so that he could block out light and he could see what was being written, what was given to him on the seer stone a little clearer. So maybe with these visuals in mind, then it will help you understand a little better, just like I hope it helps my students understand a little bit better about the translation process of the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, it doesn't help at all. There's no indication that what Joseph Smith brought forward was divinely authored. We still have the seer stone that the First Presidency finally rolled out in 2014, and a couple of other Joseph Smith's other rocks that he found. It was also the same rock that Joseph Smith used to defraud his neighbors. In fact, he stole it from Sally Chase, his neighbor, when they were digging a well together. She said, give me that rock. He came back, asked to borrow it, and then he never returned it. He used that same rock to defraud people over and over again on treasure digging hunts. Okay, this is not, there's no divine connection that I see. And if these rocks are supposedly divine and very much inspired, why have they never been used since? Why do rocks no longer work? You know, we had Oliver Cowdery with the divining rod. We had Joseph Smith with the magical worldview. How come all of those mystical items, how come early Mormonism and the magical worldview, how come it just doesn't work anymore? That's the big question that I have. If anybody wants to come on, by the way, they are certainly welcome to come on. And of course, Coach did a treatment on Brad Wilcox in this particular segment. And we'll play that one for you as well, which is quite amusing.
I'm Brad Wilcox, and I'm starting a new semester teaching Book of Mormon at BYU. And I thought I'd share with you some of the visual aids that I use with my students. This is a replica of the seer stone, or one of the seer stones that Joseph Smith had. This was the stone that he found in a well when digging a well when he was a young man. And then when he would look into the stone, he would be able to see things that other people could not see.
I need to have them somewhere dark so I can read the spiritual light. Oh, okay. Write this down. Christ appeared before the Nephites.
And that's how the Book of Mormon was written. Dum,
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 dum.
dum.
And part of the translation of the Book of Mormon was done with the Urim and Thummim, but part of the translation was also done with a seer stone, or several seer stones. Now, people often get confused because they hear that Joseph Smith put a seer stone inside of a hat and then would look into the hat to see the seer stone.
Dad, did you know that Joseph Smith guy read the Book of Mormon out of a hat?
And?
It's just that the Book of Mormon says a lot of strange stuff, like that Adam and Eve lived in Jackson County, Missouri.
Yes?
But school taught me that the first man and woman lived in Africa.
But you can't believe everything school tells you, Stan.
And they think it sounds weird. But when I compare for my students the seer stone to a cell phone, and I say, hey, a smooth surface on which words appear that can be read, then it makes more sense to them. I also say, hey, when you're out on a sunny day and you're trying to look at your cell phone, you wish it were darker. We often go like this to try to see the words better. Well, no wonder Joseph Smith put his cell phone or his seer stone in the hat so that he could block out light and he could see what was being written, what was given to him on the seer stone a little clearer. So maybe with these visuals in mind, then it will help you understand a little better, just like I hope it helps my students understand a little bit better about the translation process of the Book of Mormon.
The sexual
Yeah, that's a very good treatment. None of that helps. Absolutely none of that helps. What we need is evidence that shows that these things are divinely authored or that they still work today. If you were to bring out those rocks and you were able to translate ancient documents with them, that would be significant evidence. Every time that we need evidence here, no evidence is given whatsoever. I want to thank Peter. Hey, Peter, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. And Mark, welcome to the program. Anybody wants to come on, follow that link down below. I'm just ad-libbing here, but somebody was talking about getting pegged here. I can't believe what I'm hearing. You know, I'm not familiar with all the lingo here of what you guys are talking about. I don't know what this peg stuff is, but I guess we can check it out here. Jacob's got Kwaku pegged. I can't believe what I'm seeing here.
Let me try and peg you real quick before I.
Okay. A few moments later.
I think you pegged it pretty well.
What's the joke here? Come on, I'm almost 50 years old. I'm supposed to understand this type of humor. What am I missing here? One more time. I got to play this again. What are these guys talking about here?
Let me try and peg you real quick before I.
Okay. A few moments later.
I think you pegged it pretty well.
What they're trying? Somebody out there in the chat, what are these guys talking about here? You got to catch me up. It's 2024. I'm almost 50 years old. I'm not down with the hip stuff here. I have no idea what these guys are talking about. Why is he smiling so much? You know, I just don't understand. He says that he pegged him pretty well. What does that mean? I assume that is that some kind of a prayer? Is that some kind of a Mormon? Maybe that's Mormon helping hands. I can't put it all together. I need somebody to come onto the program and let me know what these gentlemen are talking about with Jacob and Kwaku pegging one another. One more time here.
Let me try and peg you real quick before I.
Okay. A few moments later.
I think you pegged it pretty well.
Maybe you know what? Maybe if I read the comments section, that'll help me out. I had a strong suspicion that they're peg buddies. That's not helping me. Jacob needs to read the Miracle of Forgiveness. He talks a lot about this kind of thing. Ooh, that doesn't sound good. I still trying to fill it in here. Maybe these comments here will help me out. What Jacob and Kwaku do in the privacy of their own bedrooms should just be that private. Whoa, we're getting closer here. Best overview of Mormon apologetics. Oh my gosh. This is awkward. Boy, I wish I knew what these guys were talking about. Maybe somebody in the chat can help me out. Mormon Lando Calrissian in a baseball cap. This is good for them. Good for them. Yeah, why are you guys trying to shame these guys anyway? There's a lot of shamers out there. You know that? There's a lot of shamers. What else do we got? Oh my, I guess I'm just going to have to retire that one. I don't know exactly what they're talking about there. So I guess we'll just have to go back to what I was going back to before, which is the Mormonish podcast, see what they've got going on for their shorts. That's what I was going to see. Next up.
I also think that people may be Mormoning in sort of a hybrid way. Like on Sunday, you drive past, I'm here in the heart of Utah County. You drive past churches that are full. The parking lot is overflowing. However, at the same time, you drive past Walmart and that parking lot is full. And there are people walking into Walmart in suits, ties, Sunday dresses. I also think that people may be Mormon.
Yeah, she's got a good point. It's that the Mormon stronghold, especially in Utah, has certainly been declining as of late. The latest projections in Utah show that only 42% of people consider themselves to be Latter-day Saints, and not all of those people are active. So maybe only, let's just be very generous, half of them are active out of the 42 that claim to be Latter-day Saints, because a lot of people, when they get raised in the church, they still consider themselves church members. They don't take their names off the rolls, even if they haven't gone for a long time. So 20% of the people, if 20% of the people are active Latter-day Saints, not even all of them follow all the rules. Some of them are shopping on Sundays. So yeah, things are going to be open. You're going to see Starbucks opening. You're going to see those swig shops opening in Utah. It's not like it once was where everything was locked down on Sundays for sure. Let's see what else these guys have got for us.
Here I am driving home, and we go up a hill because temples are always built on a hill, and there it is. This is the Mount Timpanogos Temple. It's pretty big. I didn't even realize how big it was. I had to look up the square footage. Now it's behind some trees, but here we go again, and you can imagine that all lit up at night. We're coming up on the intersection where I actually was behind a fender bender where a car hit another car, and the woman jumped out. We all kind of got out, and she said, "Oh, I was looking up at the spire." So that's another reason to make spires smaller, is that so you can avoid traffic accidents. But anyway, here we'll drive past right here. The grounds are very beautiful, and it is in a residential, although there is a Christian school, an LDS school right across the street. But there it is. That's our own temple. And you can imagine that at night. Here.
Now, my understanding of this is that this is right where Rebecca lives, for instance. She says she can see the Mount Timpanogos Temple, which is in American Fork, Utah, in Utah Valley, right outside of her window. And it's a tremendous structure. In fact, I was married right there in the Mount Timpanogos Temple way back 20 years ago. A lot of special feelings. You know, we've gone back for our photo shoots in the Mount Timpanogos Temple, a very special place in my heart. A quick amusing story that goes along with the Mount Timpanogos Temple. So when I went to go get married, I had a temple recommend. Of course, you can't get married without a temple recommend. But as I gave it to the person, the clerk at the front desk, to my dismay, it had only been signed by my bishop. Now, I had an interview with my stake president. This is my wedding day, of course. I had an interview with my stake president, but he forgot to sign the temple recommend. And this was on a Saturday. And we're like, they were like, you know, if you can't get in touch with your stake president, you're going to be in big trouble. Well, we finally got in touch with him. He gave him the verbal. They looked it up in the system, and I had been passed through, but he had never signed it. So as long as you're good to go in the system, that's you're good to go. Oh, and Queen Bee says that she was married there 21 years ago. Very nice. It's a very small world. And as far as cults, she said you can see the Payson Temple from my folks' window. I used to live in Payson, Utah. It's a wonderful town, beautiful town in Payson. Loved living there for a couple of years. Great place to be. Let's check out just 2 or 3 more Mormonish shorts here. Unless somebody wants to call in, I'm just spitballing this. I'm just spitballing here.
My mother was so extraordinarily upset about discovering that I was gay that the moment I will never forget was I was playing the piano, which was now in the living room. We were in a tiny, tiny house, and they had just moved me home. And I was playing something like Delta Dawn, not something, you know, triggering. And my mother screams, you know, it would have been easier if you had died in a car wreck. My mother was so...
Yeah, that is really, really sad. You know, my older brother, who was, you know, I'm one of 5 children. My eldest brother, he is gay. In fact, he was one of Utah's first openly gay politicians. I'm not going to get into that because if I do, it's going to out myself. But, you know, he was basically, you know, almost kicked out of the house when he was 17 years old. He, you know, being gay in that time back in like the 1980s, that just wasn't a thing. You know, my parents have since accepted him and they've moved past their homophobic beliefs, but it was extremely traumatizing for sure. You know, he had a generation of trauma, and he has, you know, a lot of bad memories about the church over the years. You see the difference. If he were to come onto this podcast, he would be angry rhetoric all the way. So, you know, the church's rhetoric has been incredibly harmful. And that's why I don't want to let all my cookies out of the bag here, but I have a couple of episodes that I've lined up here as far as bonus content is concerned here. You know, like I said, it's kind of hard for me to just spitball these. Holy cow, Mark, what are you saying, Mark? Mark, watch what you're saying. Oh, man. See, I knew Mark would be the one to bring me up to it. But as far as the gay content is concerned, I actually put together a video here that maybe I can play a little bit of you just in the last couple of days that says that the top 10 times that the Mormon church was on the wrong side of history. And one of the times that the church was on the wrong side of history was with regards to LGBTQ issues. So let me bring that up for you. Point number, let's see if I can find it here. Yeah, especially with like Proposition 8. Let me play that for you. Mobilizing members to campaign for the proposition. Despite its... Here we go.
Everyone is racist is in fact not, but...
You are on the wrong side of history.
In 2008, the Mormon Church played a prominent role in supporting California's Proposition 8, which sought to ban same-sex marriage at the state level. The church's involvement included substantial financial contributions and mobilizing members to campaign for the proposition. Despite its passage, Proposition 8 was eventually overturned, and the church's stance against same-sex marriage remains a controversial and divisive issue.
Utah mother Linda Stay explodes with passion in the new documentary 8, The Mormon Proposition, about the impact her church had on successfully passing a ban on gay marriage in California.
After Proposition 8, we officially resigned from the church. Yes, we did. Reason being, I did not feel like their actions were inspired of God in any way, shape, or form.
2 of Stay's 9 children are gay. She says leaving the Mormon church over its stance against marriage equality was difficult.
It's really hard because it's a community and it's a culture, and all of my siblings and my parents and my in-laws feel like I have really betrayed them because of our speaking out.
The film alleges that Mormons became the most powerful force in California's fight against gay marriage because the church called upon its members to donate as much money and time as they could to the cause.
We ask that you do all you can to support the proposed constitutional amendment by donating of your means and time to preserve the sacred institution of marriage.
I think what surprised every one of us out here in California, I mean, truly,
Gavin Newsom, he makes an appearance in this. That's amazing.
actually shocked us was the amount of money coming from the Mormon church.
Mormon church spokeswoman Kim Farah told CNN, quote, "We have not seen 8, the Mormon proposition. However, judging from the trailer and background material online, it appears that accuracy and truth are rare commodities in this film. Clearly, anyone looking for balance and thoughtful discussion of a serious topic will need to look elsewhere."
Give me a break here. Wait a minute. You said that you haven't even watched it. We have not seen Proposition 8, the Mormon proposition, but we know that it's not accurate. So you're going to prejudge it even before you watch it? Give me a break.
Where Brian Brown is the president of the National Organization for Marriage.
I value everything that the Mormon members of the California community did to pass Prop 8. And I am just outraged, and I think a lot of people are outraged that they are being targeted.
Brown admits he has not seen the documentary, but for some who have, like Linda Stay, they say the film carries a fundamental American message.
Everybody has the right to life, liberty, happiness, and certainly protection legally under the law when you commit to somebody that you're madly in love with.
Love is love, right?
Depends on who you ask. Yeah, Proposition 8 was obviously one of the times I made this video here. It's called the top 10 times the Mormon church was on the wrong side of history. And there's another segment in here that I want to play for you, which talks about the church and gays as well. Let's play that as well.
That's racist, man. That's racist.
You are on the wrong side of history.
Beyond Proposition 8, the Mormon Church has a long history of opposing LGBTQ plus rights. Policies that exclude gay and trans individuals from full participation in church life and teachings that label same-sex relationships as sinful have caused significant harm and alienation for many members.
If you ask the average Mormon or the average Mormon leader about how they feel about LGBT people, they'll say, oh, we love gay people. We love the LGBTQ community, right? That's what they'll say. And the leaders will say, you're welcome. You're welcome to be LGBTQ. Come sit in our pews. We respect and value and we want you. But if you fight same-sex marriage, if you condemn same-sex sexuality as evil, if you tell them they can't know love in this life, if you spend your money and your power fighting the rights of LGBTQ people to get married, and if you provide no theological or doctrinal place for LGBTQ members to be members in good standing, and if you teach them to loathe who they are, and you teach them to get conversion therapy to try to pray away their authentic selves, and if you create an environment that's so hostile that they want to die by suicide just by being a member of the organization, then yes, your words are I love you, but your actions are lethal. And I don't know if it's unfair to say that's hateful.
You're homophobic.
I do like those videos. Big Chris, I see you out there, but in the meantime, let's get Peter in on here. Peter, welcome to Real Talk Mormonism. Oh, I don't see your camera. Let's see here. I'm trying to get you on here, but I'm having a hard time doing it. I got Big Chris, but Peter, it looks like you're frozen out, so we're going to have to go with Big Chris first. Big Chris, how you doing? Welcome to Real Talk Mormonism. What LDS stuff is on your mind tonight, my friend?
Hey, well, I see you're getting excited about Prop 8.
Excited? I don't know about excited. You know, that's why I put the video out. It says times when the church was on the wrong side of history, because the church came out against that, but all that's been totally thrown aside because gay marriage was legalized with Agrafel and the federal level. So all of the church's efforts there only basically maybe delayed it for a little bit of time. That's the wrong side of history in my mind. Oh,
Yeah. What? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say you're in luck because I'm actually somebody who lived Prop 8.
Yeah, tell us all about it.
I'm glad you asked. Well, I mean, I was all in, at that time.
Never
And I don't
told
know,
my
it
story.
wasn't as forceful. I don't know, just when I see all these stories that are coming out now that are going against the church so hard, I'm kind of conflicted because I didn't really experience the. I mean, I remember, we were definitely told about it at church, which I guess is kind of weird. It shouldn't bring politics into church.
Because you live in California, right? And you lived there back in 2008. You were there, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And I remember what my wife and I did was we, I think, canvassed the local neighborhood, and all we were doing was just kind of asking what people were, what their thoughts were. We weren't pushing in any direction. And I'm glad, I can say that and not really feel bad about it because, we were, and maybe that's how I justified doing it, participating, because it was like, well, we're not really getting crazy. We're just asking questions. Where I drew the line was when there would be like mobs of people standing at the, at the corner by the gas station with signs and stuff. I didn't really feel enough of it. But I mean, it passed, that's what's kind of weird is it in the great state of California, it passed.
Well, that was 2008. It definitely wouldn't pass today. Let me ask you, do you regret your participation in the Prop 8 fight?
No, because I just told you I didn't really do anything. I was just kind of walking around basically doing the bare minimum. And I don't
did you have reservations at the time about the church getting involved with politics and about, making it so that same-sex marriage would be outlawed? Did you have reservations about it, or why weren't you have a big fervor? What was holding you back?
Like I said, it didn't seem like as big and as exciting. Now, I mean, I remember like my mom, she lives down closer to the beach where there's some heavy duty, let's just say some heavy duty tithing contributors. And it was like a thing that they would boast, like, oh, I donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to the cause. And that's just, I can't compute that kind of nonsense. So I don't even know what my thoughts are. But I just wanted to say again, it passed in California in 2008. And then the Supreme Court said, oh, just kidding, we're going to take it back. And I mean, stuff like that kind of makes me scratch my head. Not that I'm anti-gay or anything. And yeah, now I see the light before you start getting crazy with me. But it's like, it went to, we voted on it and we voted in a certain way. And I don't know, it just seems like, a small part of me says, well, if the people want X, they should get X. What are your thoughts, Divez?
Well, I look at it as definitely as a moral issue because, I think that people should have the inherent right to marry who they want, assuming that they're consenting adults, assuming that the people have a cognitive ability to give consent, that they're not mentally impaired, and that it's not with children and things like that. And therefore, any actions that would go against that, I would look as immoral, which means that I would judge the church's actions here as immoral. And I think that it's on the wrong side of history, considering that we knew, even probably back then, that everything along these lines of same-sex marriage being legalized was inevitable, and it only stemmed to tide just a tiny couple of years, a couple of years down the road. So, church spent a lot of money.
We can say that now, but we didn't. Nobody had the crystal ball. I think in 2008, nobody. And that's the other thing is, now everything that's talking about Prop 8 is that it was a proposition to ban same-sex marriage, and that just kind of has a negative connotation. The way I was sold it was, or not sold, not that I bought it, but the way that it was presented to me was to keep marriage between a man and a woman. And I don't know, it just has a softer, and I know it's just semantics, but it just has a different ring to it. And you can go back all day long and see all the Democrats, Obama, Hillary Clinton.
That's true.
There's all the sound bites that say, oh no, marriage should be between a man and a woman. So nobody's getting off on this. So I get a little irked, I guess, where, now, 20 years or 15 years later or whatever it is, people look back and say, oh, how smart we are now. But, nobody, it's tough. It's tough.
Well, what I'd say is, Howie brings up a good point. I mean, people voted for segregation too. People voted to instill slavery in our country. People voted to not even to criminalize homosexual behavior and to make it so that you could be put in jail for having consensual sex with another person. There were a lot of sodomy laws that were on the books. Just because the majority, votes to enact something does not make that moral. And I think that's the difference here. Is I don't see this as, you may not sound like it, but I am actually a libertarian at heart. I believe that we should only restrict behaviors in the public sphere if there's a harm that's being done to others. If there's no harm that's being done between consensual adults, then we should allow them to do pretty much anything that they want as long as it doesn't harm other people. So here we restrained adult behavior, and there was no good reason to do it, and it caused a lot of harm. That's why I think that the church was on the wrong side of history. Any last thoughts on this one? I got another caller on the line here, Big Chris, but what do you think?
No, I mean, I've said my piece. Different places, different people did different things. Like I said, people were, holding the signs. I don't think I even had a sign posted in my yard. I just did the bare minimum, but, it just didn't seem as ugly. It didn't seem as ugly as it does now. And, maybe I'm just dumb, but whatever.
I appreciate your perspective. Thanks for coming on, Big Chris. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Have a good one. We're going to see if we can get Peter on the stage here, coming in from Australia. Good day, mate.
Yeah, good day, DVs. How you going, mate?
Hey, it's going great. What LDS thing is on your mind here, Peter? What do you want to talk about?
Well, me being a never and atheist, I'm just wondering if the lawsuits that I keep hearing about regarding tithing, is that getting much traction within the TBM group over there?
I would really say that is absolutely not getting much traction. I doubt that very many true believing members are even aware of it. These lawsuits have been, many people have filed lawsuits for dozens of different lawsuits, and nobody's really ever won and get their tithing back, all the way back from the time that President Monson was sued in the United Kingdom, to the Gaddy lawsuits, to a bunch of different things. Almost nobody has ever gotten any of the money back. Now, there was one exception. The only time that any member has ever gotten any tithing back from the church from suing it was actually when there was a member of the church who ran a Ponzi scheme, and he took a bunch of money from true believing members, and he paid tithing to the church on his Ponzi scheme earnings. Now, that money that went into the church as part of that Ponzi scheme earnings, that money had to come back out and be given to the victim. So there's only been one time that I'm aware of in all of church history where anyone has gotten any tithing back. That's why I don't think that these, I doubt that 10% of the members really know about these tithing lawsuits.
That's really strange, given the amount of money that's involved. And also, when you think about it, because a lot of these lawsuits have ended up being in, I suppose you say, in Utah at ground zero, I have a big concern that there'll be a lot of graft and corruption involved when it comes to the justice system.
Say you think that there could be some corruption, especially since they were consolidated. If you look back, these new class action lawsuits were consolidated to Salt Lake City, Utah. So there was a bunch of different lawsuits that were filed in California. We're going to get Jean Judson on in a minute, who's going to talk about that. They were filed in Virginia, which is my neck of the woods, and they were all, could lead to millions suing the LDS Church. And the multiple complaints have been rolled into one mega case, and that mega case has been given to U.S. District Judge Robert Shelby in Salt Lake City, Utah. So that's why they're wondering. It appears that judge, from my perspective here, has not exactly, he hasn't favored the church at all. In fact, if anything, he's done the opposite. So
that's actually good, because my concern was that just about every second man and his dog in Utah was possibly Mormon. And given you had this type of lawsuit going up in your court system, whether or not you'd end up with a judge who's sympathetic.
No, in fact, this particular judge, Judge Shelby, he overturned Utah banned same-sex marriage on the state level, and he overturned that. So, if anything, he would be slightly hostile to the church. So, I just don't have a lot of confidence in these particular lawsuits. I'll be honest with you. I don't think much is going to come of them. I'd be the first person to change my mind, but I don't see very many members actually following this, and I don't see much happening from them. I could be wrong about that.
Right, yeah. It'll just be it'd be good to see if something positive come out of it. I believe that if they pass this one and it sets a precedence, it'll just be a floodgate.
Yeah, well, there's 9 plaintiffs total. They've been, in Utah, Illinois, Washington, Tennessee, California. They've all been now consolidated into one lawsuit. And of course, if this little class action wins, then you're going to see a lot more class actions. All of the Mormons, even ex-Mormons, will jump on the train. In fact, I myself signed up for one of these class action lawsuits. You can go onto ex-Mormon Reddit and find these lawsuits that are bringing the signatures together and doing the interviews and doing the intakes. Will anything happen from this? I mean, who knows? I mean, if you think back to it, the church was sued on a class action for its scouting policy. The Boy Scouts, the church lost this lawsuit because there was tens of thousands of Mormon Boy Scouts who are abused thanks to the church's negligence. And guess what happened? They haven't seen a dime from the church because they've been stonewalling it. This has been years in the making here. The Mormon church walked away, and the bankruptcy rejected the $250 million settlement. And so they're back to the drawing board. So even if somebody tries to get something, it could take years to get something. And that's where we run into the statute of limitations, because there's a statute of limitations that says if you give a donation to somebody, you have to sue them within a certain period of time. And some of these donations happened a long time ago. So the church is trying to run out the clock on all of these plaintiffs so that the statute of limitations will expire. And then once you are part of a class action lawsuit, a third or 40% of it goes to lawyers. I mean, and the church is going to litigate this. They're going to fight this one really hard. You know what I mean?
Well, they've got the coin to do it.
They certainly do. They certainly do. What do you want to have? What do you want to see happen with all of these lawsuits here, with these copycat lawsuits here, Peter?
For me, I would just like to see someone do what's morally right for all these people that have, basically been tricked into giving their money to an organisation that doesn't hold true to its word.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing here, the copycat lawsuits are a little different than James Huntsman lawsuit. The copycat lawsuits basically allege one thing, and they say that they gave money to the church under the auspice that money would be used to alleviate human suffering and would be used for humanitarian purposes. And it turns out that a lot of the money goes towards commercial purposes, towards investments, and only a tiny fraction of it goes towards actually helping other people. So they're alleging fraud in that capacity, and it's a little bit different than James Huntsman, which is saying that I paid tithing, and instead the church built the City Creek Mall and bailed out the insurance company. So the copycat lawsuits are focused on the humanitarian giving of the church and the fact that 1% of your donation actually goes to anything that can be legitimized. I think that's what we're seeing. Any last thoughts on this one, Peter?
No, that's it, mate. Thanks for your time, mate.
Hey, I really appreciate you watching. Thanks so much for dropping by. Have a great night, okay?
Cheers, mate.
Hey, thanks a lot. And we got just the person to give us the tithing update here. One of the plaintiffs himself, Jean Judson of the Latter Daily Digest podcast, and also one of the lead plaintiffs here in these copycat lawsuits. Jean, what information can you give about your lawsuit, about their tithing refunds? What's going on? Can you give us an update?
So I would say that, the lawyer's perspective is that they don't really want me to say much, and I'm not going to say much about specifics. But I'll just comment a little bit on, maybe some people are wondering how I got in on the lawsuit. And so I can tell that story. In November, I was watching threads and posts from Rebecca Biblioteca, and she mentioned that lawyers in California were looking for somebody to represent the class in a tithing class action lawsuit. And so I thought I might as well figure out what that is. So I got some more information, and they wanted answers to like 5 questions, like how long you've been a member, how much tithing you paid, and some other questions that I don't remember, maybe how old we were and when we were baptized, so we supplied all that information. And then not, thinking there might be a few people, Rebecca knows a lot of people, and she was putting out the information, figuring that we had a shot, and a few weeks later, we got, I can't remember, I think it was an email from the lawyer saying, hey, we received your name, and we'd like to set up a time to discuss, the situation and interview you, to see what, how compatible you'd be for this lawsuit or whatever. And so in the middle of December, we scheduled a call, and we talked with the lawyers. They introduced themselves. One lawyer, I think, was with, where still is representing James Huntsman. And so he was able to use a lot of his research that he had used for that case and in composing the complaint. And so they talked with us, and everything seemed, okay. They said, sounds good. I will say that probably I was the second most interesting person to them when they interviewed my wife and I. And they, my wife really presents herself well, but she's kind of shy. And so anyhow, they said, we'll get back to you. So I think around the 1st of January, they said, you've been selected. It's like winning the lottery where you don't get any money in a way. And so we said, okay, well, what does being the class representative, entail? And they said they're going to compile the complaint, and our job as the lead or the class representative was to be familiar with the complaint, not necessarily to know all the details. And there certainly are some things in the complaint that are, we'll say, legalese, but that, know what the complaints each claim is, and at least familiarize ourselves with it. And also to, I was looking through it because when Radio Free Mormon always goes through these lawsuits, he always finds some misspellings, some grammar errors. And so I was actually seeing how they did. And for, 40 something page document, I was surprised at how good it was compared to the cases that RFM has been reading over the air. And so I did find one spelling error.
Okay, let me jump in there real quick, Jean. People are asking, how can I get in on the lawsuit, me and my husband, because it's now technically a class action lawsuit. My understanding is you can't, right?
So it's not yet a class action from my understanding. It has been submitted as a potential class action lawsuit. So the judge is going to take in information, and at Latter Daily Digest, Maven Brody interviewed, she did 2 interviews by herself so that I wouldn't have to be in on it, so that I wouldn't spill any beans, so to speak, and say anything that would, like, whatever they say, poison the fruit of the tree or something like that. And so she interviewed Randy Bell, and they talked about class action lawsuits in general. Randy Bell has has been an expert witness in a lot of cases. He said on both sides. So he and Maven discussed, yeah, that's not it. It's like 4 months ago. It's like in...
Yeah, that's okay. Keep going, Gene.
Yeah. And so they talked about lawsuits, class action lawsuits in general. And then she interviewed Colby and talked about the specific claims and what the legal meanings of the words were. And Colby Reddish did an awesome job describing why certain words are used, what their legal meanings are. He reiterated a lot of the stuff that he had mentioned on our podcast to the Mormon Stories podcast. And so anyhow.
Yeah, well, bringing up this lawsuit, this is from Justia here. Proof of service executed by plaintiff Jean Judson and Michelle Judson on defendant corporation of the President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, served back in February. And also proof of service executed upon defendant Ensign Peak Advisors. You've had service. You've sued both Ensign Peak and the church. Wow. How does that feel, Gene? How does that make you feel?
It feels almost no different than having oatmeal for breakfast. If you eat oatmeal all the time, because our lives have like not changed at all, almost. Yeah. 15 people in the ex-Mormon community say, wow, you go, Gene, and stuff like that. And it took a few months for someone in the attending church to say something. Actually, there was kind of a interesting fellow from Southern Utah that talked about how the church needed to be defended and I need to leave the church alone. He made that comment somewhere. And I looked him up and he seemed like a lost puppy and, a nice guy. And so I let him just, sit there with his opinions. And so anyhow, I thought I was going to need a, family spokesperson. I thought there was going to be, TV vans out front, 24/7. We'd have to like cover our face in and out of the house and yell no comment. And it's like nobody even knows.
Wow. Let me just pull up this article here real quick. As Mormon Church faces 6th lawsuit alleging leaders fraudulently misused member donations, does the secretive religion face a moment of reckoning? And if you search through this document here, and you will find Jean and your beautiful wife here, Jean and Michelle Judson, a former couple from California here, in the tracks of James Huntsman. You're piggybacking a little bit off of what James Huntsman did, and there you are. You're trying to get $40,000 back. Is that what you're trying to get back there, Gene?
That is a happy 40th anniversary, which happens to be the same number 40K that we're suing for. But we celebrate our 40th anniversary, and I didn't even think about that at the time, but we were in Arizona and we were out celebrating with family. And I made sure that the waitress knew we were celebrating our anniversary because, I'm always ready to have a free dessert or appetizer or whatever a company will do for certain life events like birthdays or, anniversaries or something like that. And the waitress was wonderful. And I wish I could remember what the name of the restaurant was. It was one of those medium grade, 5,000 restaurants throughout the United States, or 2,000, whatever. But
well, in this article here, nice. let me ask you, Gene, why does it show a picture of President Hinckley in this article? What does he have to do with your lawsuit?
So President Hinckley made quite a few statements in the early 2000s where he assured people that no tithing money was going to go toward building a mall. And then everybody took him for his word until there was a whistleblower, David Nielsen, who came out and said, well, tithing money goes into a checking account and other business money, the buying and selling of stocks and bonds, goes into that checking account. And then that checking account only had two, expenditures or whatever you call, draws on the money in it. And one was for the City Creek Mall, or at least there might have been some multiple, stages of development towards City Creek Mall. And then there was another where they helped the Beneficial Life from going under. I think that's the name of the company.
Yeah, that was the church's insurance company, Beneficial Life, that they bailed out with $700 or $800 million in 2008. So it's those statements. Yeah, it's those statements in particular from President Hinckley where he said that not one penny of tithing would be used for the City Creek Mall. And
so if you think about it, 2 pennies is not 1 penny. And 4, maybe, 4 trillion pennies is not 1 penny either. Just like 1 red cent that I think Elder Holland said wasn't spent on Prop 8. It's kind of a similar play on words.
Yeah, I never really thought about that as well. You know, this that's what James Huntsman said is not one penny. Yeah, here's the quote right here from the
Right. He was assured personally.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is what James Huntsman lawsuit said. He was raised in the church, and this is from that general conference here. We feel that we want to give the assurance that tithing funds have not and will not be used for the City Creek Mall. He wants to give that assurance. And what you're trying to say with your lawsuit, Gene, is that tithing money was used for the City Creek Mall. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So it'd be like if my wife had a job and I had a job, and we each deposited money in our checking account. If I paid money to, like, say, my seamstress or something, and told her that not one penny of my wife's went to her, you know, fixing my, I guess, dress, or maybe Taylor fixing my suit, right? How would I know? All of our money went in the checking account. When I wrote the check, I didn't say use only the pennies that I deposited. So when there's commingling of funds, there is no way to definitively say
right
one way or the other. And
that's where you're piggybacking off of David Nielsen, who said that all of Ensign Peak was essentially one fund, and there was no siloing, there was no delineation between things that were investments, things that were in the checking account, things that were in the treasury account. It all just went into one place, and so it's not possible to differentiate between tithing and the interest or surplus on tithing. Is that what basically you're saying here, Gene?
That's what I understand David to say that caused him to have a thought about it. Here you have one checking account for a nonprofit that's supposed to benefit the public, and there did not seem to be expenditures that would help relieve any public conditions that most nonprofits try to relieve, like helping the poor, low income housing, lots of things like that. And so
yeah, and then here's the other statements that from the church leaders from James Huntsman lawsuit, which I assume that your lawsuit will also talk about. We have the presiding bishop, H. David Burton, who is really the one who is in best position to tell us where the money came from. He said, well, as far as the City Creek Mall is concerned, none of that came from tithing from our faithful members. That's not how we use tithing funds, okay? Or even in the Ensign magazine. Hey, regarding the City Creek Mall that's going to be built near Temple Square, no tithing fund will be used in this redevelopment, which was $1.4 billion in the Deseret News, which the church owned. Money for this project is not coming from the LDS church members' tithing donations. Instead, City Creek Mall is being used to develop for Property Reserve Inc., which is the church's real estate development arm, and the money comes from other ventures. And one more, Keith McMullen, head of Deseret Management Corporation, which is the church's for-profit arm, and he should know what the money for the City Creek Mall came from. McMullen said not one penny of tithing goes to the for-profit endeavor. Specifically, the church has said no tithing money went towards the City Creek Center. These are pretty black and white claims here. Seems like a slam dunk case. If you can prove that all of the tithing came from the same place, it seems like you got a good case.
Yeah, like I was mentioning before, if my wife and I had a joint checking account, our funds would be commingled, right? If I had my own personal checking account and my wife had her own personal checking account, every payment I made would probably come out of my funds that I put in it, right? You could show a path of that. And one thing I was thinking is that the same thing could be said for the church. If they had, business ventures in the 1800s in Salt Lake area, that they kept all that money into one checking account, one bank account, and kept track of it, then that would be money that they could say, didn't include recent tithing funds. Now, if you think about it, though, how could the church have money except for tithing?
Well, right. I can answer that. First of all, the church can have a lot of money that's not tithing related. You can leave a donation to the church. When you die, you can leave your estate to the church. Even when you're alive, you can leave your estate to the church and receive an annuity. You can also have money that the church has a number of commercial ventures. It has a hospitality, farms and ranches, hunting preserves. It's got citrus farms. It's got cattle farms. So yes, the church can get a lot of money, even historically, from non-donation sources. So yeah, sure, they can.
Yeah. And so whatever people may have done that in the 1800s, that could have developed a fund where they built businesses around in the late 1800s and could actually be shown to do that. Now, the church would have to prove that in court. They would have to show the money trail. And so that is probably the most interesting aspect of this whole thing. Almost all nonprofits are transparent, and they show people, maybe not where every dollar goes, but they show in general where funds come in and from what sources and where funds are expended and for what reasons. And if you think about it, a normal nonprofit, I believe the average is like 16% expenses towards running the organization. What's the word for it?
Operational expenses.
Operational expenses. So far, the church just says every penny we have is going toward operational expenses. Now, that is a complete different thing from what I recall in church. I recall that, like the rich man, needed to sell all that he had and give it to the poor in order to join Jesus's, following. And so I had assumed all my life that when I saw a homeless person, I did not need to give money to that homeless person, because all they needed to do was go to my bishop and ask for some donations for the poor. And so I personally did not help people that I saw in need, because I assumed that the money I already was donating was going toward people in need. And so that was a surprise to me as I entered into, we'll call it a truth crisis that the church had for me about 4 years ago.
Yeah, and you gained a lot of that information from David Nielsen, who told us through his brother Lars Nielsen that almost nothing that the church does is for humanitarian giving. It's less than 1%, and that's in diametric opposition to what you were told as a member, both from church leaders and in church manuals and in church doctrine. And when you couple that with the fact that the church said that no tithing would be used for the City Creek Mall, they're going to have to prove that. And I don't think that it's possible to prove that, because according to David Nielsen, once again, it's all just one fund. So it's going to be an uphill battle, I think, for the church. But of course, everybody has lost all of their tithing lawsuits, from time immemorial. Almost nobody's ever gotten it back. And I assume, by the way, Jean, if this isn't too personal, that these lawyers that are working for you, they're working on contingency, meaning that if you don't win, they don't get paid. Is that correct, or is that too private?
Yeah, when we first signed, there was a boilerplate agreement, and we zeroed in on one of the clauses that said, sometimes these things don't work out, and we might be liable for not only our lawyers' expenses, but if the offending or the sued party countersues for their lawyers' expenses, that we might be liable for that. And that threw up a red flag, because we're in no position to be able to do that. And so they said, "Oh, we just used a boilerplate agreement. Let's remove that, and we'll also include in it a specific thing that clarifies that we will not be responsible to pay any funds of our own." And so I don't know what all the other things are. People can come to their own conclusions about where and how the lawyers are getting paid. They could, have regular law offices where they have, plenty of lawyers and plenty of money coming in, and it's just a matter of finding time here and there to work on the case. And it's almost like, you go to a restaurant and you don't like the food that you have, and so you say that this food's, too spicy or too something, and they'll take it back and give you something that you would like. Their food costs are so low that it's almost nothing to them to replace the food that you're buying, because everything else is already being paid for. The building's already been paid for, the labor's already been paid for, the all the things around it are being paid for. It's just a matter of a little bit of food costs that's extra for that day.
Let me just ask you a couple last questions here. First of all, as we just talked about how the church has, or basically how these lawsuits have now been kind of folded in together, these 9 lawsuits, and they've been moved to Salt Lake City, whereas you're in California. So does that mean you're going to have to incur an expense if you want to be a part of this trial and your depositions or whatever else that you have to give? You're going to have to go to Salt Lake City. How do you feel about the stuff getting moved to the Beehive State?
That is a good question. I have relatives where I can stay for free in up and down Utah. And so I visit them a lot. Sometimes it's twice a year, sometimes it's once every 5 years, but it's time I started visiting those cousins that haven't seen me in a long time. That's all I can say.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I did find from Latter Daily Digest when Maven was talking with Colby Reddish about this tithing lawsuit. Let me just play this last clip here for you and get your reaction, Gene.
Fraudulent misrepresentation, the first cause of action. That is the idea, and this is the premise of John Huntsman's lawsuit as well. That's the idea that the church, in soliciting tithing donations, misrepresented material facts to people to induce those donations. So when I use the word induce, what I mean is that they were the cause of people donating. So I know specifically in the James Huntsman lawsuit, it draws attention to statements that President Hinckley made, drawing this distinction that was never disclosed to the public about the difference between tithing funds and invested tithing reserve funds. And so the argument from the plaintiffs in this complaint is that that amounts to fraudulent misrepresentation, essentially that it misrepresented the facts to such a level that it's a violation of the law and that the plaintiff should have those donations fraudulent.
Yeah, so basically the idea is here fraudulent misrepresentation. I assume that's what you're saying. What is the fraudulent misrepresentation that you're alleging in your lawsuit, Gene?
I'd have to say refer to the complaint, and I signed, I think, something attesting to that I agreed with this complaint or something like that. And so, but otherwise, in general, we were taught certain things about tithing that I found out later were incorrect because there were quotes I remember in lessons that would have ellipses that would eliminate some of the background information. And one thing in particular that stands out is it said like every member should pay tithing, ... And I since have learned, although I didn't look up the Journal of Discourses or wherever it came from, that it's really every member should pay tithing if they have means, because tithing meant a lot different thing in the 1800s in Utah that it does in the 1980s or whatever.
It sure did.
And so I started paying tithing as an adult.
Yeah, it used to be on surplus, and it used to be not strictly enforced on 10% of your entire gross. It's been a huge reinterpretation of how tithing has been reinterpreted in the church and has gotten stricter and stricter as time gone along. Hey, before I let you go, Gene, you do the Latter Daily Digest there with Maven. What do you got on tap here for Latter Daily Digest? Just plug your channel real quick before we let you out of here.
Yeah, so today we released there's that right there in the grayish one right now. It says Remembering Daniel Hartman Rector. So Hartman Rector Jr. was a very famous 70 general authority that would give fiery talks in conference. And his son had some things to say that wasn't always appreciated by his dad, but he's remained a member but he had pushback. He wanted the church to be more Christian, and here's how he would say, here's how that would happen. And so I invited Lila, and of course, Lila is the brother of Daniel Rector, and Paul Toscano was asked by the family to give what's it called when you talk about somebody who just passed away?
Eulogy?
The eulogy, yeah. So I'm old, I forget words a lot. So he was asked by the family to give the eulogy, and Hartman Rector called a general authority, and that's going to be in the show that we did. And the general authority said, nope, he can't do it. And Paul comments, he doesn't ask who Paul Toscano is. He doesn't ask, anything about, the particulars of that. He just quickly said, no. So made Paul feel like he was well known amongst the upper echelons of the leadership. And there are very interesting things talked about in that show that we released today. I have a friend who's able to share it in areas that I'm not really able to, and where we normally have 200 to 400 views after a few days, I'm expecting that show to maybe hit 1,000 views, maybe in the first 24 hours, and we'll see what happens after that. It's kind of a long interview. Bless Paul's 84, I think, year-old heart. He still has a sharp mind and an ability to express himself well.
Okay. Well, we'll be looking forward to watching that episode for sure, Gene. Good luck with
and
your
one other thing.
Yes.
Maven I love Maven. She's stepping away from now from the podcast. So if anybody misses her on any future episodes, she has said to me that she'd like to come in maybe like once a month for a little while, see what's happening. She's going to try to explore doing her own channel. And everybody look her up at Amazing Maven. And so you have to be careful how you spell amazing. There's no G in that. At amazingmaven.com. And so, at Amazing Maven on YouTube, just do that search and you'll find her new channel. And I suggest everyone look forward to what she has to produce.
Well, I'm looking for Amazing Maven. Oh, here it is.
There it is. She could use more subscribers. She could use more content. I know that she's going to be working with some other women in the ex-Mormon world, and all the best.
Okay, well, thanks for stopping by, Gene. Remember that no one held at hand can stop this podcast from progressing.
That's right. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks a lot, Gene. Hey, while we're at it here, let's take a look at let's take a look at that new Maven's new channel here and see what she's got on tap here. Let's listen to a couple of her clips. And we're one of the first persons to Amazing Maven, 47 subscribers. Let's see what she's up to.
Women's stories have been silent. They do not. We've had these presidents of the church manuals, right? Like they never bring them up. You really have to go digging to find what they say. And here's the thing. They don't want you to listen to everything they say, because so many of these women, Helen Mar Kimball, Lucy Walker, it's clearly there that they're upset, that they're just, it's not just upset, but they're sickened. They're sickened by these proposals initially. It goes against everything that they believe in, that they think. And the thing when apologists want to say, like, to people like us, to say, like, listen to the women, they don't want you to listen to those parts. They want you to listen to the testimony that they got at the end. They want you to ignore the very clear coercion. Lucy Walker says, like Joseph Smith tells her, like, look, this is God's will, and if you're not going to fall in line, like, I don't know what to say for you. Like, the gates of heaven are going to close against you. This is something he says to her, but they don't want you to they ignore that part. She had a spiritual experience, so that means it was from God. So all the other coercion doesn't matter. This is the part that they want to listen. Or when it's modern stuff, they want you to listen to women in the church who are spouting what the men say. And I was one of those women, and now I'm not, and they don't want to listen to me because I'm on the outside now. I've had a man tell me I should listen to women in the church to see how they feel, even though I'm telling you, I am a woman. I was a woman in the church, and it's not okay to go against the brethren. It's not okay to really have your own voice. So listening to them, it could be their real opinion. No one can ever know, because that's the only okay opinion to share.
Yeah, it always goes back to cult-like tactics, where it's wrong to criticize the leadership of the church. There's no ability to, the leaders are always right. And whether or not you say that they're infallible, it's not about infallibility for church leaders. It's not about the fact that some of them have, lost their hair, or some of them have bad breath, or some of them have lost a vocal cord, and that they have normal fallible human tendencies, and that they all get old and that they all die. We're not talking about that fallibility. I'm talking about doctrinal infallibility. When you say that the church leaders are doctrinally infallible, that's a problem, because we can show that they don't even agree amongst themselves. So if you have two church leaders, for instance, Brigham Young and Spencer W. Kimball, and you can throw Bruce R. McConkie in there too. Brigham Young taught that Adam is God and that he is the only God with whom we have to do. The problem is that Spencer W. Kimball disavowed that, and Bruce R. McConkie went so far as to say that if you believe that, you can't be saved. So we have two prophets. One of them says you must believe this in order to get to heaven, and another one says that you can't believe that and go to heaven. These are mutually exclusive claims. Therefore, we know that there's no doctrinal infallibility among the church brethren. If they're not doctrinally infallible, then what good are they? That's the entire problem here. So let's watch one more clip here by Maven. This one could be hitting too close to home for me. It says this one is what men can't do. Let's check it out.
Take it almost even further. There's one thing that men cannot do, and that is to grow and carry a child and bear them and bring a new life into the world. And so it just seems like they have made that one thing that they can't do the entirety of our creation and the entirety of our purpose and all that we are good for. I wonder if that's why that's the thing they can't do. That's the only thing we can do, to the detriment of a lot of women in the church.
Wow, that was crazy. First of all, we don't get to see that Jen Camp. I want to see one more time with Jen Camp popping in there. Where is she? Jen, where's that Jen Camp? I want to see one more time. I got to see Jen one more time. So there she is. Yeah, I'm not going to rejoice over what is happening with Jen here, but boy, oh boy, she is in a lot of trouble. She is in absolutely heaps of trouble. If you looked at what Radio Free Mormon has said about what's happening, I'm not going to dance on her grave. I'm absolutely not going to dance on her grave. I do hope that whatever she's going through, she comes out the other side stronger and better than ever. I don't wish harm upon any person, but she certainly seems to have dug a giant hole for her that was self-imposed and then crawled into that hole. And then while she's in that hole, she's wadding up pieces of mud, wetting it down and throwing it at people from inside the hole. Meanwhile, with her other hand, she's digging her hole even deeper. So shout out to Jen. Hey, a couple last shorts. I wanted to watch a couple of shorts here from one of my favorite TikTokers. One of my favorite people out there is Mackenzie. I just want to play a couple of shorts from her. Mackenzie. Let's check out what she's got. She's one of my favorite people out there. She has the funniest ones. Let's sort this by popularity. I want to watch a couple of these here.
So sorry to tell you this, but your husband is cheating on you. Yeah, okay. I saw him at the mall with some girl, and my husband told me this would happen, that people would try and smear him out of jealousy or something, but I already know it's all lies. Okay, well, I have evidence, I have video, pictures, I have the girl's phone number if you want. I don't want to hear it. Okay, it's your relationship. I was just trying to help because I care about you. Oh, look, he just texted me and told me he's not cheating on me, so you look really stupid right now. Are you that miserable? Do you just not want to see me happy? Yes, I am miserable and have nothing better to do. Have a great day. Mackenzie, I'm...
Yeah, it's, she's the one side is the ex-Mormon and the other side is the Mormon. The ex-Mormon is saying, I've seen some things. I have some evidence. I have knowledge of things that you may not know. And a lot of people, let's just be real honest, they're not prepared at all to engage critically thinking. They have made up their minds. They have are not open to new information, and they're not willing to question their beliefs at all. I'm an eternal skeptic. I run a live call-in show where anyone can come in and question my beliefs so long as they're Mormon related or anything else. A lot of people are just not willing to do that, and she's poking fun at that particular paradigm. Let's watch a couple of other ones. I'm a big fan of Mackenzie. I love Mackenzie so much here. Hold on.
What's up? Hypothetical question. Yeah, what's up? Hypothetically, if my friend commits a crime, do I have to tell you? Mm-hmm. For sure. Okay, so what if I told you I talked to God? Oh my gosh, why didn't you just say that? No, you silly goose. Keep that shit to yourself. I don't want to hear about it. Amazing. Also, the tax thing, are we square on that? Yeah, obviously. You make as much money as you want to. Aw, thanks. While I still have you, polygamy's still a no, right? Right. Why do you ask? I was just wondering.
So she's bringing up a couple of things. First of all, you know, we've had a number of unfortunately troubling cases where there was ongoing sexual abuse that happened that came to the attention of Mormon leaders, whether it was bishops, whether it was stake presidents, or even senior leaders of the church who came to that information, and it was not shared with law enforcement. Now, I'm not telling you here, I just want to be very careful. I'm not saying that I'm absolutely in favor of mandatory reporting in all cases, but I am in favor of where reasonable steps can be taken to preserve children who are in continuous places where they're being harmed. Then bishops in states where they can report it should report it in order to mitigate the harm on the children. So that's number one. Number two, she jokes about the tax exemptions of the church. Well, that's what the James Huntsman IRS whistleblower lawsuit is all about. He said, and we talked about it with Jean Judson earlier, that the church has not engaged through Ensign Peak. Ensign Peak is a tax-exempt organization, but has allegedly not engaged in anything church-related whatsoever, even though it's an affiliated auxiliary. It has shown no disbursements to help with the education or mission of the church whatsoever, except for bailing out an insurance company and building a mall. And according to David Nielsen, that doesn't constitute a tax-exempt organization. So she's joking around about that and the law. And as far as polygamy is concerned, actually, you know, polygamy in many jurisdictions, including Utah, has been decriminalized in a lot of places. So it's all very interesting here. Let's watch a couple more here. Big fan of Mackenzie here.
I am a charity and I have a donation. Thank you so, but I'm going to give it to my friend Steve first. Oh, that's not. Hey, Steve. Hi, I'm Steve. Here's my friend's money. Thank you so much. Oh, I'm also going to need a detailed report of how you spend this money. Why? Because I'm giving it to you out of the generosity of my own heart, so I make the rules. Okay, can I have confirmation that the money she gave you is the exact amount you're giving me? No way the fuck would I do that. You just have to trust me. I recognize you, actually. Didn't you just get caught for defrauding the government for decades? Sure did. Anyways, here's the money my friend gave me. How generous is that of me? Super.
Yeah, she's talking about the giving machines that the church trots out every single Christmas timeframe. And I believe in the last year that the church raised $20 million, $23 million during the giving machine. And of course, the church itself is worth $265 billion. Once again, we have the church being the middleman in between people and the charitable organizations that they're trying to support. Of course, that just begs the question, why not give directly to the charities? If you want to give to a charity, you can just give that directly to that charity. And the thing about it is that because the church is not externally audited, it is difficult for a reasonable person to assume that the money that they're giving to a giving machine, that they know that it is going to the charity, because we don't know what the church does with the vast majority of its donations. Therefore, why would you want to be involved with any organization where you don't know what's happening with your money? You don't know if it is being used for personal enrichment. You don't know if it's being used to bolster a hedge fund. You don't know if it's going into investments. You don't know if it's being wasted. You don't know if it's just, you don't know what's happening. So if you want to give to a charity, I strongly suggest that you give to a charity that has external auditing in which you can be confident that your money is being used to alleviate human suffering. I had Jana Reese on the program a couple of months back, and she said that she stopped giving tithing to the church, even though she attends church every Sunday, because she said that her life on this, or her time on this earth, is very precious to her. She only has a limited amount of resources, and the things that really motivate her are protecting women and girls. And so she gives to charities that go to her particular aims, and that she can have a confidence that her money is not being squandered or just put into, Tesla, Microsoft, Nvidia, and a bunch of other, Fortune 500 companies. Okay, a couple of other ones here from Mackenzie. I'm always a big Mackenzie fan here.
Well, they are both addictive.
Try this again one more time.
You drink coffee or tea. Well, they are both addictive and have caffeine in them. So you can't have soda either. Well, no, we can have soda. I mean, that's completely different. How? Well, coffee and tea are hot drinks, and that can lead to throat cancer. So you guys don't drink hot chocolate then? I have a testimony. Oh my God. Why can't you drink coffee or
I love this one because there's no rationale whatsoever behind the way that the word of wisdom is now being executed. It has changed a great deal from when it was rolled out in the 1830s in Kirtland, Ohio. It was just by way of, it wasn't even by way of commandment. It was just by way of constraint. It was just a suggestion. It really wasn't until the turn of the century, until about 1920, until the word of wisdom was universally codified, meaning that there was not to be coffee, and it was made as an entrance requirement to the temple, and that ratcheted up the church's ramping it up. It does remind me of the episode that Rebecca and I did. Maybe I'll play a little bit of that for you to take us out of here. Rebecca and I did an episode where we took a look at the church's most amusing program on coffee, Mormon Movie Reviews, A Cup of Coffee. This is the only church film that I'm aware of, really one of the only places in all of church doctrine in which we talk about coffee. And it's one of the most amusing shorts that I've ever put together. Let's just watch a little bit of this. It's one of my favorite movies out there. It's the church film strip released in 1980 called A Cup of Coffee. Okay, welcome, brothers and sisters, to Mormon Movie Reviews, where LDS movie lovers belong. I'm your humble host, D-Days, and I'm here with Mormonish podcasting legend, Rebecca Biblioteca. How's it going, Rebecca?
Hello, everybody. It's going great. I'm very excited to discuss this particular piece of media that you found.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for being here. Today is April 2nd, 2023. This is episode 86, where we will review A Cup of Coffee, released in 1980. This has a running time of 3 minutes. It's unrated, and it's a religious drama. And it's a film strip, and quite a unique film strip, isn't it, Rebecca?
It's absolutely unique. I can honestly say I've never seen anything else quite like it.
Yeah, this is a legendary church film strip, and it works best if you've seen it before. We'll put it in the show notes. That's not required, and a spoiler alert. Now, we're going to watch this film strip together while we make some insightful and occasionally irreverent commentary. Do you have our synopsis, Rebecca?
I do. This is a very interesting film about two young men that go to school together, and they have a favorite teacher or teacher's aide, and they are so excited to find out when they attend church on Sunday that she's actually in their ward. She is a faithful member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they're so thrilled that they get to interact with her at school. However, as time goes on, they discover that perhaps she is not such a faithful member. There are some things that transpire that make them both a little confused about who she really is.
Yeah, there certainly is a shocking plot twist in the middle of this film strip.
Absolutely.
And we're going to bring it all to you right now. Now, those are some serious 1980s shorts, aren't they, Rebecca?
Those would not pass any kind of dress code today, but having been a youth in the 1980s, I can honestly say, yes, that is what everybody wore, boys and girls included. Yes, the dolphin.
Yes, and not to give too many things away, but we meet our three protagonists here. We have Neil, who's taking the pictures here in the background. We have Craig here, who's playing soccer. And then we also have our sister, who we're going to meet here in a moment. Those are some nice booty. Do they call those booty shorts? I'm not too sure about that. Those are pretty short, though, because that's definitely appropriate for the era. I seem to recall a few family portraits of myself wearing something very, very similar to that.
Yep, absolutely accurate to the day. That is right.
Looking foxy tonight, man. Hey, is your troop going to be selling cookies again this year?
Definitely some very, very foxy looking shorts here. Let's continue on here.
That was a great game, Craig.
Yes, you played well.
Thanks, Miss Robinson. Thanks, Neil. Did you get some good pictures?
No, so here, Rebecca, we've got our ASL interpreter here to help us. And do you mind if we give her a name? Because she's going to play a prominent role in this film strip.
I think we should give her a name. Do you have something in mind?
How about Sister Interpreter? Okay.
Sister Interpreter. I like that. And it's so unusual that it is a film strip, yet the interpreter, of course, you would have to have live action. So it's a little surprising maybe to viewers at first when she pops in, but then you understand why she's there. Sister Interpreter.
Yes. Now, my wife speaks ASL because her brother he was born without the ability to speak for the first 6 years of his life, so he could only communicate through signs. So I had her check Sister Interpreter's signs on this film strip, and they're very accurate according to my wife. And plenty of old church film strips utilize interpreters. And fun fact here, Rebecca, I looked this up for this. I looked this up. The only interpreters the church makes use of in its film strips are those who've already had their second anointings. So we can rest assured that Sister Interpreter is not only going to be giving us the correct signs, but the correct tokens as well. And that's
and that's very important. That's absolutely important, because we don't know what she's saying. So we have to make sure that she's church approved. I think that's absolutely.
Yes, I'll show them to you as soon as I get them developed.
Great, I'd like to see them.
I'd like to see them too, Neil.
Okay, well, I'll see you later.
See you, Neil. Goodbye, Miss Robinson.
Okay, so we got our name here of the sister. It's Miss Robinson. And I seem to remember here, Rebecca, another movie where an older woman has a fascination with a couple of younger boys here. And let me pull this up here for you. Does this ring familiar to you? Can I interest you in a cup of coffee? Mrs. Robinson, younger boys?
Mrs. Robinson. Yeah, that fact did not go over my head. I did have that song kind of playing in my mind there. Hello, Mrs. Robinson. So
Now,
in this case, Miss Robinson. That's an important point.
Now, I don't know if she's a cougar or what. Time will tell. But this short could be getting really good here. Not too sure about it. Let's keep it going.
Goodbye, boys.
Hi, Neil. Have you got those pictures yet?
I love this old chapel here. That just takes me way back. Now, they are really referencing the pictures a great deal in this short. We've already talked about them about 4 times. These are some hot pics.
And you're only 30 seconds in, but he seems obsessed with the pictures.
Yes, yeah. There is a spoiler alert, though, Rebecca. Those pictures, I don't want to spoil the ending, as you well know, to our viewers out there. But, you know, with these pictures, let's just wait till we get the end. They seem to be very important to all individuals concerned, though, right?
A pivotal plot point.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I cannot wait to see what's on these pictures. These are going to be great.
No, but I'll bring them over to your house when I get them.
And I know that Joseph Smith is a true prophet.
And I know that Joseph Smith never once went treasure hunting for filthy lucre.
I know that the church is true.
And I know that the church's ban against interracial marriage is true. I'm so sorry, Rebecca. I'm just getting caught up here. I'm trying, you know, when someone starts bearing their testimony, I can't help but hop in. You know, I've been told that a testimony is to be found in the bearing of it. So I'm just joining in.
I understand how you feel the urge to update it.
Yeah.
I get that. But having, you know, been an award that looked just like this in the 80s, this is my era. I was the age of those boys in 1980. No one would know anything about what you're talking about right now. So we definitely need to update it for the viewers.
I got it. Okay, got it. Well, when people start bearing their testimony, I just automatically hop in. That's just the kind of person I am. That's true.
Brothers and sisters, I'd like to bear my testimony.
That I know the Equal Rights Amendment is the spawn of Satan's consciousness. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm jumping the gun again here. I'm sorry.
No, that's accurate. That's accurate for the 80s. I remember testimonies like that. You're spot on.
Yes, absolutely. And do they still pass the mics around, Rebecca, in fastened testimony meetings anymore, or?
You know, I haven't been to one for a while. And when I had gone, no, you would actually walk up to the pulpit and sit. But this is very correct for the era. I do remember the deacons running around. And if you were in a row and someone in the middle needed the mic, probably the most exciting part of sacrament meeting as a kid is you got to hold the mic for a minute. And some kids were brave and they'd into it. So yeah, the mic was a big deal, but I don't think they do that anymore.
Not too much anymore, I don't think.
And I'm so proud of the kids from this ward. Working with them at school has been a great experience. I hope they know how glad I am.
What is that? Oh, sorry. We don't do that anymore. Actually, wrong movie. We don't do that anymore. We used to do that, but they cut that out. The new one has less touching. It's never. Okay, wrong movie. Sorry. Old reflex here.
Wrong movie.
When I get caught up in these church movies, Rebecca, something takes over. You know, it's kind of like automatic writing. You know, sorry. Okay, wrong movie.
I understand. It makes sense.
Absolutely. Gotcha.
I enjoyed your testimony, Sister Robinson. We're glad you're teaching at our school, too.
Thanks, Neil.
Now, Sister Robinson, isn't it about time that she started hanging out with someone her own age? I mean, she's at school with them. She's on the soccer field with them. She's at school with them. She's at church with them. Now, it was perfectly fine for Joseph Smith and Lorenzo Snow to go after the young ones, But it's 1980s now. We don't do that anymore, right?
Not publicly. No, we don't do that. And it's usually the other way around. I think it's interesting that now the boys know that she's not Miss Robinson. Now she's Sister Robinson, but there's a little confusion. All of us had that experience, right? Going to school where you accidentally called your teacher, who probably wasn't LDS, sister. You know, that's usually a humiliation that most of us faced at school, where you'd accidentally say that. So he just did the same thing.
Hi, Sister Miss Robinson.
Hi.
Hello, Craig. Hi, Neil.
I really like Miss Robinson.
So do I. I'm glad she's in our ward. I'm going down to the dark room after school to get those pictures of the game. Do you want to come?
Sure, I'll meet you there.
Okay, so we're back to the pictures. Everybody's talking about Sister Robinson. All these guys there are thick as thieves here. But warning here, Rebecca, if you have any kids in the room, I know most of yours are a little bit older, but if any of our viewers out there have any kids in the room, you may want to cover their eyes, because this next part is absolutely not safe for work. I frankly can't believe that this is still on YouTube, because there is some pretty graphic stuff coming up. Okay, so I just want everybody to be prepared for what you're about to see.
I haven't watched this in a while. I love this commentary. We did a good job on this one.
Uh-oh. Oh.
No!
Oh, no. Give me strength. Is that Lucifer's being, Rebecca? And here I thought
my goodness.
I thought Sister Robinson was on the covenant path this whole time.
And did you hear that sound? Just that evil sound of that liquid pouring. There's no mistaking what that is. And she doesn't even seem to be hiding it. She's right out in the open, just fully pouring a cup of coffee.
Right. I mean, Joseph Smith, he was smart enough to cover up most of his shortfalls. We'll just put it down. She's doing it right out in the open. She doesn't care. This is absolutely shocking stuff here. I may need to take a shower after this short. This is really, I can't believe what I'm seeing here.
And she's still pouring.
Yeah. And look at this, right? So wait, she's brewing coffee in front of a minor. Now, I thought that in Utah in the 1970s, you could be arrested for that, or at least lose teaching credentials. I mean, right in front of the kid. She has no shame. Look at that.
Yep. No, there's an iron curtain for coffee too. And look at his body posture and his look. I mean, he feels dirty himself. He should not be looking at that. He knows he shouldn't be looking at it, yet he can't look away. I recognize that pose.
Yeah, I mean, we all remember the lovely Sister Robinson monopolizing the mic at church on the Lord's Day. Her perfectly permed bangs flopped gently forward, her little house on the prairie get-up buttoned smartly to her chin, her modest makeup enhancing her natural beauty. Meanwhile, she's capable of something like this.
She has a dark secret.
Wow. You know, what about, remember she said, I'm so proud of the kids in this ward. Was that nonsense just for show?
Yeah, I think she's covering up her dark secret.
Does this monster even care about the damn soccer photos? That's what I'm wondering. You know,
it's all a ruse.
I feel so betrayed right now. Not SEC fine level betrayed, but right up there. Right there.
I get it.
Unbelievable.
Are you sure?
Yes, she was pouring a cup of coffee.
I suggest that these fine Aaronic priesthood holders immediately inform the strengthening members committee of this totally apostate behavior.
And look at his face, the boy who's receiving the news. They just can't believe it. They're shocked.
Yeah, Craig, that's Craig. Craig, Neil seems to be, he's mildly accepting it, but Craig, he is stunned. And also take a look at Sister Interpreter here is signing the word coffee. And look at the look on her face. That's not a good look.
No, she looks very disdainful, concerned, worried. You're right. I didn't notice that when I watched it the first time. She also is inserting her own opinion into the video about coffee.
Yeah, absolutely. This is real shock to everyone involved, from Sister Interpreter to Craig here to Craig here to Neil. Everyone is shocked by Sister Robinson's absolute hypocrisy. Let's see what happens next.
Unbelievable.
Well, it's true.
I thought she was such a good member of the church.
Okay, time out here. Can you not be a good member of the church and have a cup of coffee, Rebecca?
Absolutely not. But you can be a good member of the church and tell on someone and judge someone right away. That's the important part.
Yeah, oh man, yeah, because the filmmakers, they're basically sending us the message that no, you can't be a good member of the church and drink an occasional cup of coffee. You're either all in or you're all out. And if you cannot qualify for a temple recommend, which drinking an occasional cup of coffee would very likely make impossible, then you are not a good member of the church.
Here she comes.
Hello, how are you boys?
Wait a minute, how are you, boys? She says like she hasn't just made a pact with Satan.
She's so nonchalant.
Yeah, I mean, oh yeah, okay, well, us, yeah, we're fine. But since we're priesthood holding members of the only true and living church on the face of the whole earth, with whom the Lord is pleased, speaking collectively and not individually, who have made sacred covenants to stand as witnesses to God in all times and in all places, we are just going to let you know that we're going straight to the bishop about your evil liquid imbibing practices. Nothing personal, just business.
Just business. And it should be pointed out that they do rank higher in the church than Miss Robinson, because they are, even though they're, however they are 14, 15, they are priesthood holding boys. And I actually do believe that they would mention it to their ecclesiastical leaders, what they had seen at school. I absolutely believe they would.
Fine. How are you?
Are those the pictures you took of the game last week, Neil?
I'm getting triggered by these picture references.
It's absolutely nonstop with this woman. If it's not pouring a cup of coffee, it's trying to see pictures of teenagers. I don't get her.
Unbelievable. So she's just nonchalantly talking about pictures. Meanwhile, she's got the coffee right in their faces, right next to them.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to see them. Do you have a minute?
No, hell no. We only share our fun pictures with people whose hands are clean from the blood and sins of this generation. And that ain't you, babe.
I gotta hear that one more time. That was perfect. That was amazing. One more time. I'm backing that up.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to see them. Do you have a minute?
No, hell no. We only share our fun pictures with people whose hands are clean from the blood and sins of this generation. And that ain't you, babe. No, I'm not sharing my pictures with you anymore. Sorry.
Sure.
Okay,
Good. I have to take this cup of coffee down to Mrs. Olson. She hasn't been able to get around very well since she broke her ankle, but then I'll be right back.
Whoa, plot twist.
Oh, now we see. Now we get it.
Okay, take the knives back out. Put the knives back in the holsters. Everybody take it down a notch.
Why feel sheepish?
Yeah, well, these guys, I guess they feel kind of stupid. Hey, deacons, next time, maybe you should ease up on the judging of the other people, you know?
No, it's important to judge first. If you have to revise your opinion later, that's okay. But the important part is judge quickly and judge first.
Gotcha. And I guess we should all take Sister Robinson's name off the prayer rolls. But hang on for a minute. Now, let me ask you this, Rebecca. Should Sister Robinson be complicit in preparing and delivering an evil substance to Mrs. Olson that will keep her colleague out of the celestial kingdom, prevent her from being at her children's temple marriages, and will cement Mrs. Olson's eternal bondage to Beelzebub?
See, that is a very good question, because she does seem to be very nonchalant in taking this to, I guess you could look at her as a good Samaritan. But again, shouldn't she instead take her colleague a Book of Mormon and maybe try to explain to her why she shouldn't be drinking coffee and some of the other things that she shouldn't be doing? That's what I wonder.
She's taking the coffee to Mrs. Olson.
Now, notice, by the way, that Mrs. Olson drinks coffee and has a broken ankle, whereas the three Latter-day Saints, they don't drink coffee and they're in great health. Now, that's a subtle message to me from the filmmakers that I see what they're doing there. You know, maybe if Mrs. Olson hadn't been drinking coffee, she wouldn't have broken her ankle in the first place. So remember the promise at the end of the Word of Wisdom, which says, all saints who remember to do, keep and do these things, walking in obedience to the commandments, shall run and not be weary, shall walk and not faint.
I did not put that together, that she's injured and having trouble getting around. You are absolutely right.
And we thought she was going to drink it.
That was a close call, folks. That was an incredibly close call.
How about your nervous laughter there?
So relieved. It's laughter of relief. They don't have to go to the bishop. They don't have to turn her in. They can still continue to enjoy her friendship at school and her constant asking about pictures. It's all good.
Yeah, it was a close call, but my heart was absolutely racing. The Lord will provide, brothers and sisters, tender mercies absolutely tender mercies. Now, if you want to get in touch with me, I'm at mormonmoviereviews@gmail.com. Now, Rebecca, the pictures? What happened to the pictures?
Wait, that's the end? There's no more?
That's it. That's all you get. That's it. It's over. What happened to the pictures? That was a major plot element mentioned throughout the movie.
Well, is there a part 2? Maybe they see her smoking in the teacher's lounge and she's really taking a cigar to a teacher who also has trouble getting around, who has a spleen brace or something. Maybe there's a part 2 and we find out more about the pictures. I'm going to hold out for that.
Well, talk about leaving us hanging, though. I mean, I'm always going to wonder how those pictures turned out.
Yeah, me too.
Now, not only do we not get to see the pictures, though, but the worst part for me of the movie is that there's absolutely no message at the end from a shriveled up Utah-born sanctimonious white guy expressing in earnest tones the satanic power that can be unleashed by drinking coffee. I think that would have added a great deal to the short.
I feel like it is definitely missing. And then, of course, the interpreter would be able to interpret what he's saying for all of us. So you're right. But again, it almost speaks for itself. It's pretty obvious what happened. And it was a close call. I think we all can agree on that.
Definitely. Now, what do you take away as the short's message? What are the filmmakers trying to send a message of?
Well, again, I think, like I said before, it's, you see someone make sure that you pay attention to what others are doing. Make sure you're always on high alert for what they might doing incorrectly, and make sure that you judge them and tell others, talk it over. And then, of course, if you have to, then revise your opinion if you find out that you were wrong. But those other steps need to take place first.
Now, let me ask you another question. Is the message of the short that it's okay to judge other people as long as they are not members of the church? So we can judge Mrs. Olson, but we can't judge Sister Robinson? Is that the message, or what do you think?
That's what I meant. We can judge Miss Robinson because she has a higher light and knowledge than the other teacher, Mrs. Olson. And it's true. The boys laughed. It was perfectly fine that Mrs. Olson was going to drink the coffee. Completely acceptable. But they know that Miss Robinson knows better.
Right. Maybe the message of the film for me is apparently that maybe we shouldn't just assume someone has begun worshiping the devil because they're holding a cup of coffee, not because that would be an overreaction, not because it's none of the boys' business, not because it's wrong of them to judge, maybe just because they might be holding it for someone else. But Rebecca, whatever happened to judge not that ye be not judged?
I don't know. I don't think people pay attention to that. I think it's human nature. You see something, especially if you live perhaps in a place where there are a lot of members of the church around you all the time, you can't help but notice, whether it be the modesty of a swimsuit or a cup of coffee, or perhaps you see them going to the store on the Sabbath. There are just these little indicators that tell you this person may not be living up to what they know they should be doing.
This reminds me of one of my favorite movies in the Mormon movie reviews. It's called That Which Was Lost, released in 1969. It's got the hippies in it. You might remember that. But maybe Sister Robinson should have told Sister Olson the following rather than fix her devilish coffee for her.
Get out of my life. 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 Get out of my life.
Maybe should Sister Robinson have told that to Sister Olson? Get out of here. I'm not going to make your coffee for you.
Well, maybe, but she seemed like she was trying to be supportive. And I think the bigger picture is that Miss Olson, I picture her as maybe being older, and she really did need help. So maybe the message is be a good Samaritan, regardless of whether it makes you break some kind of ethical code you may have.
How do you feel, Rebecca, about this church video showing Sister Robinson working outside the home? Because you do not see a lot of films from this era showing any woman working outside the home.
Oh, absolutely. I was concerned at first until they said Miss Robinson. And then I knew that she's either probably a new teacher or a teacher's aide. And the minute that she gets married, she, of course, will not be working at the school anymore. And hopefully no potential suitors would see her with a cup of coffee. Maybe that's why she's unmarried. Maybe some of her potential boyfriends have seen her with that cup of coffee, and they're not going to go near her with a 10-foot beanpole.
Absolutely not. Now, that's basically the short in a nutshell. Let's talk about the coffee just for a moment. The golden question is, why does the modern LDS church think that coffee is a no-no? And that simple question that's really never been answered. In the church, we have modern day prophets, seers, and revelators who one would imagine would be able to answer that question, yet no one has done so to my knowledge. Why is coffee a no-no, Rebecca?
That is an unanswered question. And I think because it's just been in place for so long, it's impossible for anybody to backtrack on that until perhaps in a recent conference address, we learned that a lot of words of wisdom, words of past prophets, perhaps cannot be taken with such, gravity. And we are to listen to the current prophet. So I think it's possible that it may change. I think it's very possible.
Well, the word of wisdom has changed a number of times in the past, and it could potentially do so again. Now, if we think about the Old Testament here, Rebecca, God explained in excruciating detail in the book of Leviticus and in the book of Deuteronomy about what his chosen people should eat, what they should drink, what they should not eat. But for some reason, he forgot to ban coffee. He said, don't eat, let's see, a lot of things: swine, hare, camel, mouse, frog, mole, lizard, tortoise, crayfish, crabs, owls, hawks, storks, heron, hoop, jackdaws, bats, lots of things you should eat. He spent hundreds of chapters, but apparently he didn't mention coffee whatsoever. Is that one of the plain and precious things removed from the Bible?
I think that's possible. I was going to say that's why we needed the restoration. Absolutely. To make sure that there's a little footnote, and coffee.
But that's okay. But if we needed the restoration, guess what? It's not in the Book of Mormon either. That's the restoration. He forgot to mention it in the Book of Mormon as well.
No, that's why we need living prophets. So they can mention it. And coffee.
Okay.
Actually, in this case, it was the prophet's brother who finally, explained what hot drinks mean and said, Hiram said, I think it's coffee and probably tea.
Or maybe God has only recently become upset with the idea of drinking coffee. For the, humans have been around for like 200,000 years, and it's only in the last 90 in which coffee has actually bothered the creator of the universe. I guess that's also possible. I really wouldn't know. But, are Mormons, are they very serious about this coffee stuff, or is it just kind of a ha-ha joke? What do you think?
Well, it's interesting because, the word of wisdom, of course, came out, and then people continued. It was just sort of advice. If you look at the manifests of what kind of goods they brought over as pioneers, and I've seen these at the Daughters of the Pioneer Museum: coffee grinders, tea kettles, coffee pots, coffee beans. They were a coffee drinking people. They absolutely were. And then, of course, later on, I believe, after Prohibition, to kind of keep us peculiar, I think they really doubled down on another liquid that they could tell people not to drink. So I don't know. That's why I see it ebb and flow. And I feel like it may continue. I live next to a temple, and they are building a Starbucks a few blocks away from it. I never thought I'd see the day, but there it is.
Absolutely. Mormons are very serious about the coffee consumption. And that's why, Rebecca, we want to give you a 2-for-1 on this review. We're going to give you a small digression here and go back to the April 2007 General Conference here with the famous address here by Sister Julie Beck, who helped lay down the law with regards to how Mormons are to view obedience to restrictions on coffee in regards to eternal salvation. And this clip has become one of the most legendary General Conference anecdotes in Mormon history. It's less than 2 minutes long. So let's walk back through memory lane here with Sister Beck.
My next story is about a woman I'll call Mary. She was the daughter of faithful pioneer parents who had sacrificed much for the gospel.
Sure she was.
She'd been married in the temple and was the mother of 10 children.
Yeah, right. First thoughts about Mary: 10 children. That's pretty impressive.
Wow.
Daughter of a pioneer, 10 children. Wow, this is a very good pedigree. We're starting off. Mary had better be one heck of a sister based upon this pedigree, right?
Yeah.
I agree.
She was a talented woman who taught her children how to pray, to work hard, and to love each other. She paid her tithing, and the family rode to the church together on Sunday in their wagon.
Yeah, so like so many legendary General Conference church stories, we're never quite given enough information to actually track down the sources to confirm what the speaker is saying. How are we, it would be nice to read her diaries or know who we're talking about. I wonder why we're not given enough info on Mary. I wonder.
Yeah, a lot of information is dangerous. And we don't even really know when Mary lived. It could be a wagon. It could be a station wagon. It's not really clear yet.
Though she knew it was contrary to the word of wisdom, she developed the habit of drinking coffee and kept a coffee pot on the back of her stove.
Oh, no. Now, so this is the thing, though, Rebecca, as you well know, it is really only contrary to the word of wisdom as interpreted by the modern LDS Church. As originally revealed in section 89 of the Doctrine and Covenants, Joseph Smith's revelation, it doesn't even mention the word coffee, and it was given not by way of commandment, but by way of constraint. So yeah, Doctrine and Covenants 89 here, if you look, it's to be sent as a greeting, not by way of commandment. And if you do a keyword search here for coffee, guess what you find in the word of wisdom? Absolutely nothing. Mary here is under a time frame here where the word of wisdom was not taken as seriously. Presumably, she lives in a time frame when the word of wisdom was not taken as seriously as it is today. So I'm wondering why there is such a big issue. Let's keep it going. And for this next section here, Rebecca, I want you to pay careful attention to Sister Beck's facial expressions, because we're going to pause it here in a moment where she makes some very emotive facial gestures.
She claimed that the Lord will not keep me out of heaven for a little cup of coffee.
Oh, okay. What do you see here? What are we seeing?
Yeah, just that very condescending, oh my goodness, kind of wrinkling up her nose and eyes. Yeah, as if she's that statement is a ridiculous statement, is what she's indicating to us. The Lord won't keep us out for a little cup of coffee. Yeah, that's very interesting.
She finds amusement in this section for some reason. Why is she smiling? It seems, and this is the first time she smiled in the talk. It seems to me that Sister, like you said, Sister Beck is smiling here because the naivety of Mary. Mary apparently does not know that, yes, the almighty creator of the universe, the beginning and the end, the Alpha and Omega, the Ancient of Days, the Lord of all creation, will indeed keep Mary out of heaven for a little cup of coffee. And Sister Beck, though, she knows that and finds it amusing that Mary does not.
I gotta play that one more time. That was that was pretty good. The Lord of all creation. I want to play that one more time. Sorry, but back that up a little bit.
Seriously, presumably she lives in a time frame when the word of wisdom was not taken as seriously as it is today. So I'm wondering why there is such a big issue. Let's keep it going. And for this next section here, Rebecca, I want you to pay careful attention to Sister Beck's facial expressions.
Watch the nose.
Because we're going to pause it here in a moment where she makes some very emotive facial gestures.
She claimed that the Lord will not keep me out of heaven for a little cup of coffee.
Oh, okay. What do you see here? What are we seeing?
So funny.
Yeah, just that very condescending, oh my goodness, kind of wrinkling up her nose and eyes. Yeah, as if she's that statement is a ridiculous statement, is what she's indicating to us. The Lord won't keep us out for a little cup of coffee. Yeah, that's very interesting.
She finds amusement in this section for some reason. Why is she smiling? It seems, and this is the first time she smiled in the talk. It seems to me that Sister, like you said, Sister Beck is smiling here because the naivety of Mary. Mary apparently does not know that, yes, the almighty creator of the universe, the beginning and the end, the Alpha and Omega, the Ancient of Days, the Lord of all creation, will indeed keep Mary out of heaven for a little cup of coffee. And Sister Beck, though, she knows that and finds it amusing that Mary does not.
Yep, that's right. The door will be shut on Mary when she tries to knock on those pearly gates. Absolutely.
But because of that little cup of coffee, she could not qualify for temple recommend.
Okay, so I want to back this up one time real quick and watch her finger. Watch what she's doing with her finger in this little section.
But because of that little cup of coffee, she could not qualify for temple recommend.
Now, what are you getting from the finger wag here from Sister Beck?
That is the point she's trying to hit home. That is absolutely like a teacher, the finger, right? She is saying, you had better listen to these words. I'm going to school you.
Absolutely. As a schoolmaster. Okay, you are ignorant, which is why I'm laughing. Now I'm going to lay down the law.
Yep.
We don't have time to go over the complete history of the word of wisdom, but I just want to review two quick sections here. And that's the modern LDS application of the word of wisdom. It has its beginnings in the presidency of Joseph F. Smith, who became church president in 1901, at a time when even notable church leaders drank alcohol and coffee. For example, George Albert Smith, later church president, took brandy for medicinal reasons. Anthony Lund, first council in the first presidency, enjoyed Danish beer and currant wine. Charles W. Penrose, second counselor in the first presidency, occasionally served wine. All of these folks who are around the turn of the century in the 1900s, they said, drinking an occasional cup of coffee or Danish beer or anyone else, including people who became presidents of the church, first presidency members, all the way past the turn of the 20th century are all drinking coffee. They're all having wine. They're all drinking in moderation, and we don't have any issue whatsoever. And I want to read this last paragraph here. In 1921, this is the big date here, Church President Heber J. Grant finally made adherence to the word of wisdom a prerequisite for temple admission. And that's what Sister Beck was talking about with getting a recommend.
Yep, that's right. It all hinges on that recommend. And if you're not doing what you need to do or not do to get that recommend, you really are cut off from the presence of God.
And neither could those of her children who drank coffee with her.
Hashtag super sad. This is really pulling at the heartstrings right here. We have amusement earlier. Now we have the stern, the joking, the laughing. Then we have the stern taskmaster. Now we're going to ratchet up the emotion. She's wearing her heart right on her sleeve.
She lived to a good old age.
Now, I want to pause. I'm sorry so much pausing. I find it amazing that Mary in the story lives to be a good old age. If coffee is bad for you, shouldn't a general conference talk show that Mary had an untimely early demise, especially because she's knowingly flouting God's temporal law of health? I'm amazed she lived to be so long if she's drinking coffee willfully.
Good point.
Absolutely. And she's completely ignoring the church's health code. Therefore, her health should suffer.
One would expect it to be so.
And she did eventually qualify to re-enter and serve in the temple. But only one of her 10 children had a worthy temple marriage, and a great number of her posterity, which is now in its 5th generation, live outside of the blessings of the restored gospel she believed in and her forefathers sacrificed so much for.
Now, remember here that Mary is the daughter of Mormon pioneer parents. So if her parents presumably came to Utah, say in the 1850s or maybe 1860s, because if you come across the plains on after the promontory point, what was that, 1868? What, when the train was something in the mid 1860s?
Yes.
Yeah, when the train came. In my mind, if you came across on a train, you're not a pioneer. Okay. So apparently Mary's parents came across 1850s, 60s, so they gave birth to Mary maybe in the 1860s. Mary would be like, I don't know, 50 or 60 years old when Heber J. Grant's actual coffee ban came into effect. She'd be like 50 years old. Most women have all of their children by the time that they're 50. So the elements of the story of her having so many issues with the word of wisdom, they don't line up with what we would see in the historical record from somebody who was the daughter of pioneers.
Yeah, I just want to add in on that. Okay, her parents came across as a pioneer, gave birth to her. Mary would have been at least 50 years old before this prohibition would have come into place. She would have had most of her kids before that time. So Mary's mythical story doesn't make any sense.
That's why the wagon has to be a station wagon. That's the only way it works. So, no, it doesn't add up at all. And in fact, if she were that age to be affected by the word of wisdom in force, her children would be grown almost.
Exactly.
I would think they would already be grown. So why would they be influenced by their mother having a little coffee pot on their stove? In fact, I want to now get some paper and try to write down this timeline, because 5th generation now has been affected. So take that back. She may be even older than we think.
It's amazing how many of these stories, we can't look any of this up. We can't look in her diary. We can't find who this person is or anything about them. And just all of the elements are very, very suspect.
That repentance isn't optional. We're commanded to repent. The Savior taught that unless we repent and become as a little child, we can in no wise inherit the kingdom of God. We must not let one little cup of coffee, one bad habit, one bad choice, one wrong decision derail us for a lifetime.
And that's the end of the clip there. If one little cup of coffee, Rebecca, can derail a person for an entire lifetime, and by implication, an entire eternity, imagine what decades of perpetrating billions in investment fraud can do.
I think it's apples and oranges. I don't think they see it the same way. I did notice, as you showed that final clip, that she is wearing pearls. And although she didn't touch them, I feel there was a lot of pearl clutching going on as she was talking. Yeah, and I have to say, this clip has been circulated so widely in outside of the LDS world because it is viewed as being absolutely absurd.
Yeah, I mean, just let that sink in. She said specifically that 1 cup of coffee. She didn't say a lot, that you have an addiction, that you have to have 4 cups a day with lots of sugar, and you can't control it, and you can't even function without it. She said specifically 1 cup of coffee can derail a person for a lifetime. Just 1 drop, and you're done. I mean, that's really, I guess, the title of the video is Mormons Are Serious About Their Coffee. And it really seems like it really seems like they are. Let me just give you one last thought on this particular one. I want to say that this legendary story, it could have easily been framed in a much more positive light. Remember, Mary came back to the church into full activity, apparently giving up her evil liquid drinking practices. So Sister Beck could have shared this story and said, hey, everybody, let me share you this story. Mary, she made a few mistakes along the way, but take heart. Anyone can come back to the gospel. Anyone can have repentance. Anyone can be forgiven. But instead, what is the message that we get? She's hammering home that Mary jeopardized not only her own eternal salvation, but her kids, and just totally ignores the fact that she came back to the church at the end.
Yep.
That's right. It's too late. The deed is already done. Your children are out. You cannot take that back. So, and that's pressure. Not only is your own salvation at stake, but your children, your children's children, those 5 generations, it's all on Mary.
Yep.
That is a lot of pressure. You better put that cup down now.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure, a lot of guilt too. Generational guilt.
Now, going back to our first video, the cup of coffee, the film strip, the church, Rebecca here. Now, this is you're getting this right from the source. The church actually did produce a little known sequel to that short, which very few people are aware of, and it's even better than the original.
Excuse me, sir. Would you like some coffee before we serve dinner?
No, thank you.
Good choice.
Would either of you like another cup of coffee?
I will, but Jim won't.
I think I will have another cup of coffee.
Jim never has a second cup of coffee at home.
Oh, I should have had that second cup of coffee.
Jim never vomits at home.
Jim never vomits at home.
Oh boy, see what happens if you drink the devil's brew, Rebecca.
I know, that's exactly right. Oh my goodness, that clip is hilarious. I love
I
it.
think that actually hammers home the church's message better than anyone. The pilot, what was the pilot's name in Airplane? Stryker. Yeah,
Stryker.
He saves the plane.
Yeah.
And the
So
man
no.
who got 2 cups of coffee, now he's not feeling very well. So I'm joking that the church made that, but that does fit very well with the church's teachings.
It does. And that's based on a commercial. Do you remember that? The commercial where the woman says, I don't know why my husband doesn't drink more coffee at home. And of course, the illusion is that her coffee sucks at home, right? So, oh my gosh, that's great.
Yeah. So, that's the other question here. Is coffee actually bad for you? And this is the thing, is that our modern day scientists, I'm not a scientist, but I can read an article and figure out what they tell me. LDS doctrine, it really teaches that Mormons need to live with what we've come to find out are the negative health consequences of avoiding coffee. That's right. I said negative health consequences. Let me share this with you. So this simple article here that I looked up, and there's a lot more that are like this. I got it off of CNN. It says coffee lowers the risk of heart problems and early death. Study says, especially ground and caffeinated coffee. And it says that you're 27% more likely to have an early death if you don't drink coffee. You're 20% more likely to have heart disease. You're 17% more likely to have an irregular heartbeat. And it says that the researchers found significant reductions in risk for coronary heart disease, congestive heart failure, strokes. It also says that it will lower the risk of heart disease, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, type 2 diabetes, liver disease, prostate cancer. It really appears to me, Rebecca, that coffee is one of the best things that you could possibly drink for your health, aside from water.
Yeah, I don't think that's good enough. I don't think that data is good enough. Nope. There's something else in coffee, and we're just going to wait for that to be revealed.
That's interesting that you say that, because this article also shows the largest ever study which was done on coffee was in the UK, and it tracked 500,000 people for 13 years who drank coffee, and then looked at the results of what happened to them. And there was just an amazing amount of health benefits that went along with this group for a long period of time. They said caffeine is a well-known constituent, is a well-known part of coffee, and it's likely that people will have let me see here. Sorry, it says that ground coffee consumption lowered the risk of death. It just had a lot of health benefits. Everyone who took part in this 13-year study for 500,000 people, that is a huge, huge study for a long period of time. We've scientifically proven now that there are serious benefits that go along with drinking coffee.
I don't know. Was Mary in the study? I don't think so. Look at her results, right? And that was 5 generations.
Yeah, that's true. So that's the thing. Assuming we take, that's the thing. If we take the scientists at their word, which says that drinking coffee is good for you, it's that God is asking us to do something that he knows will have deleterious effects on us. It's not like the Word of Wisdom says the following. I think about this. Like, let's say the Word of Wisdom banned, I don't know, pumpkin seeds or Gatorade Zero. Those are even money propositions, right? Whether you drink Gatorade Zero or not, it's not going to affect you. Whether you eat pumpkin seeds or not, it's really not going to affect you. Whether you eat granola bars, they're not going to affect you. So it's not like coffee is a 50-50 thing that we just say, okay, we don't drink it, we don't know why, and it's no big deal. No, it is a big deal. You're increasing the likelihood of all of those things that I said. So the Word of Wisdom, the coffee prohibition in particular, God is asking Latter-day Saints to live in a manner that he apparently knows will lead to poor health outcomes. Why in the world would God want to do that?
That is a very good question, D-Days. That is spot on.
It's a test. Have you read Job? It's the same kind of thing. See? Well, and I will say that I have a family member who had some intestinal issues, and her doctor literally prescribed coffee. She would not do it. He said, I can give you all these other medications. They're going to be rough. There's going to be a lot of other issues with them. Or you can simply just start drinking coffee. Would not do it, even though it was her doctor's advice, the easiest, safest way to take care of her issues.
I've heard the same thing with people who are prescribed medicinal marijuana for glaucoma, because that's technically against the Word of Wisdom as well.
Yeah.
So I find it very remarkable that that some things in the Word of Wisdom are banned, which are really good for you. And then there's some things in the Word of Wisdom that are completely absent, which are really, really bad for you. So the Word of Wisdom says nothing about Mountain Dew, for instance, but Mountain Dew is literally one of the worst substances you can have. It causes tooth decay, hormone and fertility disruption. It causes obesity. It has a slew of health problems like diabetes. The Journal of Toxicology said that people who drank a lot of Mountain Dew required dialysis. It causes skin lesions. It burns your thyroid out. There's growth hormones in there. And the artificial dyes in it are really, really bad for you. And this is why I want to bring this up here. The Word of Wisdom is banning coffee, which has positive health benefits, but then it's completely silent on things like Mountain Dew, which are really, really bad for you. So it's like the Word of Wisdom is opposite from what we know about human physiological bodily functions. And that's kind of a problem, isn't it?
It's a big problem. I think they need a Word of Wisdom update, because I do believe that people go by the letter of the law, and it does not say no Mountain Dew. It does not say no Monster energy drinks. It says nothing like that, or nothing even close to that. And so I think I live next to a Swig drive-through. I mean, I know what goes on there. I'm in Utah, so I see it firsthand.
The only people who are actually allowed to drink coffee who are Mormons are those who've had their second anointings, which is why so many people in the ex-Mormon Reddit want that second anointing so they can drink coffee, enjoy all the health benefits, all without the guilt, or eventual demotion to the telestial kingdom.
Yeah, well, and it's very difficult to start drinking coffee once you become more of a post-Mormon. You really are just like, you're very naive. You have no idea how to order or what to order. I mean, the first time I ever tried, I think I said, can I have a fettuccine Alfredo? I didn't know, cappuccino, kappa, what? You have no idea. You really are at a disadvantage, but the health benefits are clear. I was kidding before. And tea too, the antioxidants and all of that. It's really very, very good for you. So it's a problem.
Now, let me add let me close with one other thing and show this to you here. And this has been making the rounds for quite a long time here. This was a first presidency letter that was written in November of 1965. And it's signed by David O. McKay, the president of the church, Hubie Brown, counselor, and Eldon Towner, another counselor, Joseph Fielding Smith, who was yet another counselor, and also Thorpe Isaacson. He was a counselor who very few people know of. But anyway, there was quite a few counselors at this time because David O. McKay was in poor health, so he needed a lot of extra help here. And this was back in the day in the 60s where you could actually write letters into the First Presidency, and they would actually answer them, get back to you, and give you the answers to your question. I would call that the golden age of Mormonism in my own mind. And there's a lot of these type of letters that are floating around about there. And I really think that the preponderance of evidence shows that they're genuine. But a ward member here in the Bishop Miles here in Los Angeles, he wrote, he had his bishop write into the First Presidency and asked specifically about decaffeinated coffee. And here is the letter back from the First Presidency. I'll maybe make that a little bit larger for you. For your information, please be advised that the drinking of a beverage made from the coffee bean, from which the caffeine and deleterious drugs have been removed, is not a violation of the word of wisdom. And the drinking of Senka is not a justifiable reason for denying a temple recommend to one who is otherwise worthy. We shall be pleased to have you convey this information to the presidency of the Elders Quorum. Any reaction on this letter, Rebecca?
Yeah, and this is an example of why they finally just threw caffeine under the bus. Nobody could figure out what was wrong with coffee because there were all these benefits. So they finally kind of decided, anecdotally, it must be caffeine. And then that launched this whole campaign against caffeine to the point where some people will not even eat chocolate because it does have a little bit of caffeine in it. So yeah, caffeine is the villain. And when you remove caffeine from coffee, then it's simply coffee. You've got Postum and Senka. Most people, I think, have older relatives that used to drink that. But the bottom line is they don't know why there's something wrong with coffee. They just keep trying to go through it. They try to pick it apart. Maybe it's yet to be revealed. Caffeine has been the villain. Now it's not so much anymore. That's why Diet Coke was such a villain too, is that whole caffeine element. So yeah, it's kind of a bottomless pit of what are we going to throw under the bus to support that word of wisdom, which itself is very nebulous in the way that it was interpreted. So
yeah, I mean, we had the First Presidency saying that there's deleterious drugs in the coffee bean. Okay, well, science. This is the problem. When you weigh into areas where you don't really know what it is that you're talking about, David O. McKay doesn't know anything about human physiology or deleterious drugs in that nature. There are no deleterious drugs that are in the coffee bean. We've established that through scientific means.
Correct.
So, I mean, they're throwing this out there like there's something evil. We don't know what it is. It's some kind of an essence or whatever it is. But the problem is we've looked at it all and there is no weird essence that's it just gums everything up. You know, we massively need an upgrade to the word of wisdom, which conforms to modern scientific principles.
Agreed, because believe it or not, and I think this is accurate, the word of wisdom itself did conform to modern in the day principles. There were doctors of the time that said actual hot drinks, hot liquid was actually bad for you. A lot of things in the word of wisdom were just kind of quack science of the day, if you want to say that, as far as dietary and health restrictions. It does need an update now that we have 200 more years of information, because it would be great if God or your church would be able to give you some advice on what to avoid and what not to. I always said I would probably have more respect for God if he right away would have said boil water. You know, in New Testament time, wouldn't that have been an amazing thing to tell people, even in pioneer times, wash your hands and boil water? That would have made a huge difference to health.
Yeah, that would have been, you could scrap the entire word of wisdom and just say boil your water, and it would have done more good than everything that's happened from that from there on.
Yeah, but you can't boil your water because you're making coffee and tea with it. So it's even worse than that.
See, and this is the thing. If I was a member of Islam, which is, Muhammad is the last prophet, there is no prophet after Muhammad, and we're not going to get any other revelations. And they say, if someone in Islam says, well, we don't know the answers to these things because, you know, the Quran is the final book of God, and Muhammad's the last prophet. He never said anything about coffee, so we just don't know. I guess I could respect that. The thing is that the value proposition of the church is that we have modern day prophets, seers, and revelators who can get additional light and knowledge that the Father was supposed to send to them and be able to update things and be on the up and up and be on the cutting edge of everything. Unfortunately, the word of wisdom is, we've gone actually backwards from when President Grant was in there. He should have never thrown coffee under the bus. We'd be better off the way that it was back in the 1900s. And that's a sorry state of affairs.
Yep, I agree. And I do know a lot of people, I think there's just kind of this concept where I'm just going to take matters into my own hands and I'm going to keep the word of wisdom how I interpret it myself. I do know people that have just said, I've arrived at this and I'm going to do this. And it's a don't ask, don't tell. And I kind of feel like if they would just remove it from the temple recommend question, it wouldn't even have to be an announcement or say, they could save face, just remove it. And people would just gradually do their own thing. Don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah. Now, I've always wanted to, one last segment here, Rebecca. I've always wanted to start a YouTube channel to do Mormon meme reviews, MMM Mormon meme reviews, but I never had enough time. Nevertheless, I've got some memes, Mormon coffee memes. They are absolutely priceless. And so we're going to give you a little sneak peek, a pilot of that. And we're going to, I want to present to you the top 10 Mormon coffee memes. Can you rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a good meme, 1 being needs a lot of work?
I hope my favorite one is on here. Are these ones you created or just aggregated?
I plagiarized them. I didn't create any.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Won't drink coffee because the Mormon church says so, but drinks Mountain Dew 24/7.
Yeah, that's a truth. It's not even funny. So, but I'll give that a 7. That's good.
Okay, that's an average. I drink this coffee for and in behalf of blank, who is Mormon.
Oh my God.
I like that one.
How do you like that?
Okay, I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable. No, I will give that an 8. That's really good.
And in the fine print, it says, and this I do of my own free will and choice.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
8.5. Okay.
I do like that one. That one is a good one. I drink this coffee for and in behalf of blank, who is Mormon, and this I do of my own free will and choice. I do like that one.
Yeah, I would say yes, for sure.
Okay, very nice. I never drink coffee. It's against the word of wisdom. He's got this huge monster drink.
So sad, but true. I'll have to give that a 7 too. Same kind of concept. It's just so sad.
I love that picture. Look at that guy. That is absolutely pure.
All right, tough crowd. I don't know if we're going to get any 10s. That's okay,
Yeah,
though.
we will.
I don't drink coffee, sir. I don't drink hot liquids of any kind. That's the devil's temperature.
That's good. I like that. That's really cute. I'd give that an 8.5 too.
Yeah, that's the devil's temperature. You know, in Joseph Smith's day in the temperance movement in the 1830s, people thought that hot drinks were bad for you because they did something to the interior of your body. That's why in the word of wisdom, it says hot drinks are not for the body. Well, it turns out that hot drinks, as long as they're not too hot, they do absolutely nothing to you. They're not for you. They're not against you. In fact, the hotter the drink was back in the 1830s, the better it was for you, as long as you let it cool down. Because then, there's this thing called germ theory. That's the way it goes. Hot drinks would have been really the way to go.
8.5, very nice. Yeah. It is delicious to the taste and very desirable.
Ooh, there you go. That's a good one too. I like that. I'll give that an 8.
No coffee for me, thanks. I don't do drugs.
Oh, gosh. And you got the Book of Mormon out there. Yep. No, that's right up there. I give that an 8.5. That's a good one.
I do like that one. I like that one. Oh, I'm all for feminism, but it's kind of making it harder to date. This is like saying I'm all for Mormonism, but it's kind of making it harder to go to Starbucks.
Yeah, I don't like that one.
That's kind of a miss. I don't know. Not
That's
sure
good.
about that.
I like
That's
it.
good.
I still like it. Anything with Gene Wilder.
Jesus be like, I'm so happy you didn't drink coffee. And then
that's my favorite one of all time. That I give a 10. I was hoping you would show that one because that one makes me laugh every time. And it just points out the utter absurdity. It's completely ridiculous.
Oh boy. You may need to have that print that. I'll put that on your bumper sticker there, Rebecca.
I might have to.
Okay, so here we got Voldemort, hot coffee, hot before coffee, after coffee, but because he's Mormon, it's a hot cocoa. No, okay, that's kind of a miss. How about this? This is my personal favorite here, by the way. We're going to the Celestial Kingdom for the weekend to visit our son who drank coffee.
I like that one. I like that one.
Rebecca, I love that one too.
Is that
that's up there.
Is that hitting a little too close to home for you with your parents, or am I reading something in there? No, that's not.
Well, I don't think they really know anything about my lifestyle. So
okay.
It's okay. So.
Okay. Yeah, I love this one. That's my favorite one. And then finally, we have this video. Somebody actually put together a video here, and this is my favorite meme for videos are concerned. So let me play this one for you. I doubt that you might have seen some of those other ones. I'm not sure if you've seen this one.
If I had to give up my Joe, I have a full-blown addiction. Hopefully that won't come back to haunt me.
Oops. Where did you get this? Who taught you how to use this thing?
You, all right? I learned from watching you.
Damn it, Billy. At least he's using good beans. Guess I'm gonna look like a porn star when I'm older.
No, I had not seen that one. That's a really good one because I remember that commercial with its original purpose. Because of you, Dad. My friends
No,
and I
well,
used to say that.
sorry, I'm not familiar with the original commercial. What does he actually find?
It's drugs. He finds
Oh,
drugs
okay.
and he goes, "Where did you get these, son? How do you know how to do these?" And the son's like, "From you, Dad." So yeah, it's one of those ones teaching the parent, just like Mary. Now we've gone full circle. If you do it, your kids are going to do it, and 5 generations.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, so that's our final thoughts. We kind of gave you a 3-for-1 here. Final thoughts on the video short, the famous 1980s antique coffee short, A Cup of Coffee. Any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, I almost still can't believe that was actually made. I mean, I do understand it, and it absolutely reflects the era of the 80s, from making sure that you're keeping tabs on your neighbor and seeing what they're doing, and judging. And the hairstyles. It was very accurate as far as all of that.
The toughest thing about that short here is that it really, for me, puts in the contrast that you're supposed to be a witness of God at all times and in all places. So were they supposed to rebuke her immediately and say, "Excuse me, I've made a covenant to God, and you are doing something that is evil and wrong"? Should the deacons, as priesthood holders and people who have made covenants, immediately told her that she was in the wrong? Is that the message, or are we supposed to judge not that ye be not judged? That's the problem. That's the kind of the contrast in the short that I have, and I've not been able to answer it.
No, and it's a question. And I think, back when I was younger like that, that was the message, though, that you definitely would call someone out. Even a child could call an adult out and say, "You're not supposed to do that." I learned that in primary. So having been in primary now as an adult, I've definitely seen a difference where they will talk about the word of wisdom, but they'll say, sometimes your friends or family don't understand this, and it's okay, they're learning, so you no longer have these little kids coming around confronting you, which is what used to happen back in that era, where that was the message. Even as a child, even like those boys, you could call out Miss Robinson and you could tell her what.
Yeah, in fact, my own kids, they learned a similar message in primary about smoking. They drilled into them, "Don't smoke, it's not a joke." And I remember my kids, we pulled up next to somebody in a stoplight or something when I used to live in the Midwest, and the windows were all down. One of my sons, he must have been like 3 or 4, he literally looks across at another person who's smoking, and he screams at him, "Don't smoke, it's not a joke." And the guy kind of looked a little bit sheepish about, "I'm getting rebuked by a 5-year-old kid here,"
Yep, zealots. So I think there's a kinder message now, because they realize a lot of kids do have family members that are not doing the things that they're learning are bad in primary. There's a difference. So yeah, it's interesting to see that. That's why it's important to watch these older videos, because it was a different day and the message was different. You can see how far you've come, I think.
Yeah, that was the messaging that I grew up with, was that type of, there is no, and same with Sister Beck. That's in the short was in 1980. Sister Beck's comments, I believe, in 1996 or 1997. That was the messaging at the time. It is cold. It is hard. It is in your face. It is there is no bones about it. This is the way that it is. And one cup, one drop will derail you for a lifetime. And you literally, your entire eternal salvation could be in peril. And that's where we get like Wendy Nelson, the wife of the prophet, who wrote the book, The Not Even Once Club. It's based off of those types of ideas where there is, and even though Mary came back, that doesn't matter. She blew it. It doesn't matter. It's over. So
yeah, she blew it for 5 generations. And you're right, that Wendy book, exactly. And that's such a harmful thing, especially for kids. The idea that everyone's going to make a mistake. I'm sorry, you are. Big ones, small ones. There's no such thing as just ones. There isn't.
Yeah, and now they did revise last April the Strength of Youth pamphlet, which kind of backed off a little bit on some of these the do and don't lists. And I think it's a bit more healthy in the way that the church approaches these things now, which I think is a great step forward. So, hey, Rebecca, thanks so much for joining me to review this film. I really appreciate your comments and your feedback.
Yeah, it was really fun. I love hanging out with you and talking about all these old movies, because who else is going to listen to me? You're about the only other one I know that likes these things. Hopefully your viewers do too.
Sure. Absolutely. Now, thanks so much for joining me to review this short. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and join us next time for another episode of the Mormon Movie Reviews, where LDS movie lovers belong, where we will review How Near to the Angels.
This actually, believe it or not, is one of my absolute favorite. This is one of the ones I would check out from the Ward Library probably more than any other.
Okay, so long.
Yeah, we also did a How Near to the Angels movie review, and that's also one of my favorites. That's a great review. And as far as Matt was asking about the LDS commercials, yes, the church released through the 70s and the 80s the Homefront commercials campaign, and they released dozens
of these regular length commercials and also some longer little spots and commercials that are up to 3 or 4 minutes long. I have done a review of that, which is about 17 minutes long. I have it scheduled up to be reviewed or to be released pretty soon. I want to thank everybody here for joining me on this live stream. I'm just kind of spitballing here. If any of you, next time we queue up a live stream, want to come on, talk about anything at all Mormon related, send your true believing members on here too. What I really want to have is a lot of members who come on and say, this is what I believe and why I believe it, and this is why other people should believe, and we can have a rigorous conversation. That's what I'm hoping for, and I'm ready for the pushback. I'm ready for people to try to stick it to me, and I want to thank you all once again for showing up, and look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.